And welcome everybody to the 2017 NFL Mock Draft. I'm Bill Hrabak. I'm joined by Greg Henning. Rick Phillips, of course, is on the board. And we will be joined by some various guests through the draft process. We will be taking the picks just as they line up in the NFL. We have some callers who are posing as the GMs for the particular teams. There will be no trades since it's difficult to predict what the teams are actually going to do next Thursday night. We will have Fritz will be up first with the Cleveland Browns. And Greg, I don't think there's much debate. I think there's a lot of disinformation going on right now about the Browns. I see the Browns taking Myles Garrett. I don't think that even we're hearing about Mitch Trubisky. I think we're going to see movement by the Browns to try to get Trubisky, but I just don't see Myles Garrett getting by the Browns.
No, I agree. I think with Myles Garrett, he is definitely a number one overall draft pick. He's the type of player that you can build your defense around, and obviously the Browns do have a lot of needs, especially at the quarterback position. In my opinion, before they even think about drafting a quarterback, they definitely need to shore up that offensive line because it's not going to matter who you put behind them. But they do have some wiggle room with the drafts that they have, with the picks that they have. They could move forward if they need to.
And I think they've addressed a lot of the offensive line situation through free agency. They signed three free agents. So I think that where you're going to see Cleveland go is they've got Greg Williams as a new defensive coordinator. Of course, he's most famous for New Orleans when he was doing Bountygate there. And you take that away from the equation, he's a great defensive coordinator. He runs a 4-3. They signed Jamie Collins, who will be on one side. They'll have Myles Garrett on the other side. You have Danny Shelton taking up some space in the middle. So the Browns have the start of a pretty decent front seven if they get Myles Garrett in that mix.
Yeah, and in the secondary, they do need some help in the secondary, but they do have Joe Hayden. Their linebacking core needs some work. But like we said, they have a lot of positions. This is a rebuilding team,
right,
which unfortunately for them has been rebuilding for quite a few years now. But they do, I think with the coaching staff that they have, they give them the time. I think the Browns are going to start making some positive draft picks.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the quarterback situation, no matter how you see it, Mitch Trubisky is obviously, Cleveland spent a lot of time in the fall down in North Carolina. So would it be a surprise if they took Trubisky? Maybe not the Clevelanders, maybe more so to everybody else. But I just don't see it. I think Trubisky can be had later. Cleveland may have to do some work, but they have plenty of draft choices. They can move up a little bit if they really want Trubisky. If it were me, I would probably bite the bullet, take Osweiler and Cody Kessler, ride through the season. You've got Sam Darnold coming out of USC next year. You've got Josh Rosen coming out of UCLA. Might be a better way to go if you can accumulate picks and be able to move up where you can get that player.
Yeah, and I don't know if this draft has that franchise quarterback.
Right.
I think they have some solid quarterback play, but I don't see the next, Andrew Luck or Russell Wilson or, whoever coming out of this draft. I think they have some potential. I just think with the Browns, they need more help than just a quarterback position.
Okay.
Even though obviously the quarterback is the number one need for most teams.
Well, we'll put Mike Fritz up on the clock here. And Mike Fritz, I think, will have a pretty quick answer for us, and then we'll move to our number two team. Browns' number one need is quarterback. They have also offensive tackle, defensive end, which could be addressed, tight end, safety, cornerback. I mean, their leading rusher, Isaiah Crowell, is a restricted free agent. I think they will address running back somewhere down the road. Rumor is they're interested in Kareem Hunt, the running back out of Toledo, somewhere in the later, maybe third and fourth rounds.
Yeah, and they don't need to stretch. The way the NFL is now, you don't have to reach to get that running back. You can find a productive running back later in the draft.
It is a pretty strong class of running backs, and I would think that, you'll probably see 3 taken in the first round, which is, you can thank Ezekiel Elliott for that.
You've reached Michael Fritz.
Okay, and so our GM for the Browns is unavailable. He's probably on the phone working a trade with somebody, but since we cannot wait at that point, we will make that pick for the Cleveland Browns if necessary. And, I think I know where we're going to go with that, as we have just talked about. But the number 2 pick belongs to the San Francisco 49ers. GM Scott Wilcox will be making the call there. They're very much like the Browns. They need a quarterback. They need an edge rusher. They need a wide receiver. There is a kid right in their own backyard who I hear they're interested in, and I would suspect that might be the way they're going to go. So do not be surprised if they stay in their backyard for that pick. And we have Mike Fritz, the GM for the Cleveland Browns. Mike, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm sitting here with Greg Henning, and we are at the 3rd annual NFL mock draft here on TalkTV.us. And, of course, we're simulcasting on WALH 106.7 in Wilmington and WZAA 106.9 here in Jeffersonville. Mike, the Browns are on the clock, and you have the first pick in the draft. And where are the Cleveland Browns going to go with that pick?
Well, coming into this, there's probably 2 glaring needs that we need. It would either be a playmaker on defense, or the most glaring need would be a quarterback. So, the number 1 pick, you've got to weigh basically 2 choices. Get one of the top quarterbacks, or take the best prospect in the draft is Myles Garrett.
And so the question is for you, is it the lure of taking the quarterback who is, pretty much an undecided field? I know the Browns like Trubisky a lot. This morning, NFL.com came out with a lot of the experts saying that Patrick Mahomes may be the actual best quarterback in this draft. Where are you leaning to, and what is the Cleveland Browns pick here in the first round?
Well, I'll tell you that with the first pick in the draft, the Cleveland Browns select Johnny Football.
Don't do that to me. We've seen that movie once before. It didn't turn out well.
No, it really does come down to quarterback and Myles Garrett. But I'll tell you what, Myles Garrett is one of those once-in-a-generation type pass rushers there. But I think he's just too good to pass up for the Browns, and they'll have to take him. Okay,
so the Cleveland Browns' first pick is Myles Garrett of Texas A&M, the defensive end. And I think, Greg and I agreed that was probably the way the Browns needed to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
He is the type of player, as you say, he's a generational player. And even if you strike out on a guy like him and he's only a player that plays for 10 years and really isn't spectacular, but's there and he contributes in a solid way to the franchise, that's not a bad pick for the Browns.
No, I think it's a good choice by the Cleveland Browns, especially with the quarterback play in the division is pretty solid, and you need to get after those quarterbacks. And I think Myles Garrett, like you said, even if he isn't the number 1 defensive end in the league,
right,
if he can get after the quarterback, he'll be successful.
Yep. Well, Mike, thank you. We will be back with you here in a short while with the 12th pick, and we'll see where the Browns go with that one.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see, right?
Yep. Okay, we will talk to you in a few minutes. And that was Mike Fritz, the GM for the Cleveland Browns. We will be moving now to Scott Wilcox, the general manager for the San Francisco 49ers. It looks like Solomon Thomas, who and a lot of boards really moved up here, Greg, to a point where he was in the same conversation with Myles Garrett. He's from Stanford. He's in the 49ers' backyard. They need to start rebuilding a defense out there. It seems like Solomon Thomas would probably be the logical pick here.
It would make sense when when Jim Harbaugh was out there. They built their team around defense. Jim Harbaugh is his offensive mind, but that was their strength, was the defense. That front 7. I think the one year of their starting 11 players, they had 9 of them in the Pro Bowl. That tells you how good they are and how much that organization values the defensive players.
Absolutely. So we will see here in a second where the San Francisco.
This is
Scott Wilcox. This is Bill Hrabak on TalkTV.us with the 2017 mock draft. I'm joined by Greg Henning. How are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys?
We are great. The Cleveland Browns just opened the draft with the selection of Myles Garrett, the defensive end out of Texas A&M. Scott, we know the 49ers have a lot of needs like the Browns, and where will the 49ers be going with their pick?
Well, I think ideally they would like to pick a quarterback, but there's just not one worthy of the second pick. So after doing a little research, I think the 49ers would probably go with Solomon Thomas, the defensive end from Stanford.
And I think that's a solid pick. I think the 49ers do need to look at rebuilding. And matter of fact, Greg and I were just talking about that. Solomon Thomas makes a lot of sense for them. He has moved up the charts quite a bit to be comparable to Myles Garrett, at least in conversation. And I think being a backyard product there in Stanford, that makes a lot of sense for the 49ers to go that way.
I agree. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it certainly would fill one of their needs.
Okay. Well, Scott, you will be doing some other picking for us a little bit later with the Kansas City Chiefs, and thank you for joining us with the 49ers' second pick overall in the draft.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you in a couple hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick. In this league, you either have to have a quarterback, a guy to protect the quarterback, or a guy to get after the quarterback. And the way things are going right now, the top two picks are both defensive ends, are both big physical players that can play the run and the pass.
Exactly.
This is kind of how we see things going, because the top 5 picks in the draft, their top 5 prospects in this draft are all defensive players.
Now, when we get to the Bears, and we'll have Lee Hendee will be picking for Chicago here in a second, we look at the needs. The Bears need a corner, they need wide receivers, and then thirdly, they would be looking for depth behind Mike Glennon, the recently signed free agent quarterback, offensive tackle, tight end. Their likely picks, Jamal Adams, the strong safety out of LSU. You have Marshon, Lattimore, the corner out of Ohio State. Jonathan Allen, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. And Solomon Thomas is off the board. So, the Bears are noted for defense. I would not be surprised. I think that Marshon Lattimore has been talked about a lot. Jamal Adams, I think we're going to see a defensive back. We'll go that far, and we will see what Lee Hendee has to say here about the next pick for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, in the secondary.
I'm ready.
Okay, and Lee Hendee is ready. He's ready to go. General manager.
You're already giving away my picks, Bill.
Yeah, he's locked and loaded there. He's ready.
I am ready, big boy.
He's ready to go.
And you guys will be so surprised to hear that I have my top 2 picks are both Ohio State Buckeyes. So, that should get you guys a little fired up.
Well, of course.
Yeah, you were talking about Marshon Lattimore. He's also been projected to go to the Jets.
Yes.
Malik Hooker was actually one of the top picks for the Bears.
Yep.
But I'm going to stick with the guy that you brought up, Marshon Lattimore. He's 6 foot. 193 pounds, could be a good quarterback for the Bears, but they need a lot of help in a lot of areas up at the Windy City. I'm sure at some point they're going to try to find maybe a quarterback or trade for one, but Marshon Lattimore of the Ohio State Buckeyes is my pick for the Bears.
And Lee Hendee comes through with the Chicago Bear pick. Lee, I think that's a good pick. Lattimore is considered a exceptional athlete with good man-to-man skills. Of course, Greg Schiano, defensive coordinator for the Buckeyes, shares a lot of responsibility for bringing that philosophy to Columbus. And I think that that's a good pick.
And, not that Malik Hooker would have been a bad pick,
no.
But I think Lattimore has to be the top guy right now.
And I agree with you. It's hard to find a shutdown corner in the NFL. And at this point, I think if Lattimore Gareon Conley, the other Ohio State corner, has shot up the charts. But Marshon Lattimore is the pick of the Chicago Bears at number 3. And Lee, thank you for giving us the Bears pick, and we will talk to you in a little while.
We may see you live in the studio before this whole thing's over, so fasten your seatbelts.
Okay, we will see Lee Hendee up here at the new studio for TalkTV.us and Campus Nation. Thank you, Lee, and we'll be moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Zach Hrabak will be filling in for his brother, J.J. Hrabak. J.J. is got some National Guard responsibilities this weekend and cannot pick for the Jaguars.
He's out playing in the forest.
He's out playing in the forest with guns. So we will see what's going on. Now, the Jaguars, Tom Coughlin's come back as the GM. I think what we see going on here is Coughlin wants to fashion a team much like he had with the Giants, which means they're going to run the football. They have a lot of defensive players already in place. The defense wasn't a problem. The theory might be for Blake Bortles, the somewhat maligned quarterback, that if they get a running attack and can get some play action involved, that's going to help him develop as a quarterback.
Yeah, with the struggles he's had, you definitely need that running game because he has not been able to produce like they expected him to produce. Another position that they're kind of looking at, which I've heard from a few mock drafts, is the tight end position.
Right.
So if the best friend of a quarterback is a good tight end. And
Talk to Tom Brady about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you have O.J. Howard possibly. So let's wait and see where they go.
Yeah, O.J. Howard could be the guy, and we will find out shortly here when we get Zach on. We got Charlie Hargrave here in the studio. Charlie will be jumping in one of the hot seats here in a second. So, oh my goodness! Hey, is this Zach Hrabak?
This is Zach Hrabak.
Zach Hrabak. This is Bill Hrabak, and I'm joined by Greg Henning, and this is the 2017 mock draft. And you are picking for your brother, who has some military obligations this weekend. Where do you see the Jaguars going here, Zach? I mean, we've seen some things. Leonard Fournette, Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle from Alabama, Malik Hooker, the safety from Ohio State. You're in the hot seat. Where are the Jaguars going to go?
JJ sent me some of his picks, and he had Fournette, Hassan Riddick, and fancy that, and Jonathan Allen on there. But who's been taken already?
Well, we've had Myles Garrett go to the Browns, Solomon Thomas went to the 49ers, and Marshon Lattimore has went to the Chicago Bears.
Marshon Lattimore went to the Bears.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think JJ thought Jamal Adams would still be around.
Yeah.
But Jamal Adams would be a great fit in the secondary, and I think that would be an awesome pickup with him and Jalen Ramsey back there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go with Jamal Adams.
Okay. Where did Fournette figure into the thinking there? Because Coughlin obviously likes a running attack, although we kind of talk about him as the coach, and he really is the president of the organization. He is not the head coach. So was that a consideration as far as Leonard Fournette?
Yeah, absolutely. Coughlin likes to start from scratch and build his offense with players that he selects. So I don't think Ivory or Yeldon are part of the plan right now. So Fournette's a very decent option.
Right.
But I think that Jamal Adams reminds me a lot of Landon Collins, who the Giants selected. So I have a feeling that if he's around there, that they would take Jamal Adams.
Okay. Well, you'll be joining us for a few more picks as you're doing the GM duties for the Chargers and the Houston Texans. So we will be talking to you here in the near future, and thank you for giving us the Jaguars pick.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
And so what do you think of that? There's a little bit of a surprise after taking a secondary player last year and back-to-back secondary. I mean, it wouldn't have been where I would have went. I would have thought maybe even offensive line might have been something they would have done, but it is entirely possible they'll continue to build that defense.
Yeah, I thought they would go offense. I think that's where most of their issues are. But again, if you get a guy like Jamal Adams, it's hard to pass up on, because they have multiple needs. So maybe going with the best available at that time at that spot isn't a bad choice.
Right.
But their offense has been pretty inept over the last few years. So I expect them to go offense, but clearly their front office decided that Jamal Adams was the guy for them, and continuing to shore up that secondary.
Yeah, I can't say that it's a complete surprise. I mean, if you build a dominant defense and you don't have to score a lot of points, you can win a lot of games. So Jamal Adams, the strong safety out of LSU, is the pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that takes us to Trey Sacksteder, a new participant in the draft for us. Trey will be picking for the Tennessee Titans.
Hello?
And is this Trey Sacksteder?
It's good. Trey Sacksteder, drafting live from the Cincinnati Reds ballpark.
Okay, he's down there at the Great American watching the Reds. Trey, this is Bill Hrabak. I'm joined by Greg Henning here at TalkTV.us for the 2017 mock draft. And I know we've talked a lot about the Titans in the past few weeks. What do you see as the Titans' strategy here? I know there's a lot of talk about maybe them trading down out of this. What do you think? And then what would be your selection?
We're looking at obviously going defensive back. The top two on the choice were Lattimore and Malik Hooker. Since the Bears have taken Marshon Lattimore,
Right.
we feel the best addition is going to be Malik Hooker from Ohio State safety.
Okay, so the Buckeyes with 2 in the top 5 picks. Malik Hooker goes to the Tennessee Titans. I know, Trey, that you'll be back here in a little bit with your 18th pick. And I don't think you go wrong with Malik Hooker. He's been compared to Ed Reed, and anybody that's compared to Ed Reed can't be too bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, he, 2 years ago, he almost quit at Ohio State. He almost quit at Ohio State, walked away, and wasn't playing much. And now with, what he had last year, he's only going to go up from there. I mean, the upside of him is tremendous.
Right. Okay. Well, Trey, thanks for coming on. We'll be back with you in a little while here to check out where the Titans go with their 18th pick.
All righty, we'll talk to you a little bit.
Okay, and that's Trey Sacksteder, general manager for the Titans. You can't go wrong with Malik Hooker.
No, I think it's an interesting pick, though. I think number 5 for Hooker is a little bit of a reach. I think that's a little early. If it were me and I was drafting, if I had my choice between a shutdown corner and a safety, I'm always choosing the shutdown corner. Now, the fact that Hooker could be the next Ed Reed could skew that argument, because Ed Reed, you could say, is the greatest free safety to ever play the game. So if he's in line with that, it's hard to argue with it.
And I think the thing about Malik Hooker, and I know we saw him a year ago playing the spring game for Ohio State. He scored 2 touchdowns in that spring game, and during the course of the season, he had 3 more touchdowns for the Buckeyes. If you have a player on the defensive side that's worth 6 points every game, potentially, you can't substitute that for any other type of player. So I think Malik Hooker, he is the best available athlete, I think, and you go with that, he makes a lot of sense at that position.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I mean, what the guy in 14 games is pretty impressive what he was able to do, so it's hard to go against that.
Yep. And then we have Charlie Hargrave in the house. And Charlie's going to join us for a little draft action. I thought him and Greg were going to sit next to each other. They had this ongoing the Reds and Yankees and Pete Rose. And,
I mean, some guys recognize greatness, some guys hope to see greatness eventually. So there's a difference there.
And that's why Hillary lost.
I didn't vote for either of them, so
That's my point exactly. Thank you for proving my argument.
But
Let's get back to football here. You can save your political debate and nonsensical arguments for a later time. Here we're talking about the NFL mock draft.
This is America.
Okay, and we've got Chuck Hale coming up for the New York Jets. The Jets, like Mitch Trubisky, Malik Hooker is gone. They do like Deshaun Watson. I think they'll take any quarterback. Marshon Lattimore was another one. The two Ohio State products are gone. Gareon Conley's still sitting there if they're looking for corner. But they need, I think, the center's something. And Chuck Hale, this is Bill Hrabak on
Hey, Bill.
TalkTV.us. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'll run this down for you. So far, we've had Myles Garrett go to the Cleveland Browns, number 1. Number 2 was Solomon Thomas to San Francisco. Number 3 was Marshon Lattimore to the Bears. We had number 4, Jamal Adams went to Jacksonville. And Malik Hooker, the safety out of Ohio State, just went to the Tennessee Titans. Where will the Jets be going today with that number 6 pick in the NFL draft?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a tough choice. We're going to go ahead and go with Gareon Conley from Ohio State.
Okay. So the Buckeyes have half the picks in the first round here. And why Gareon Conley over, I've seen a lot floated about Mitch Trubisky as being a favorite of the Jets. What's the compelling factor for Conley there?
Well, I think that losing Reuben really shows us a need. We need to beef up the secondary, especially a cornerback.
Right.
We really need a shutdown guy, and I think Conley can come back.
Yeah, in recent reports I've read have Conley has really went up the charts. A lot of people say he's technically the best corner in the draft. Maybe not the most athletically skilled, but he has all the tools to be a very productive corner in this league for 8 to 10 years.
That's right, and again, after losing, shutdown guy like Reuben,
Right.
That's a big hole.
Okay. Well, Chuck, I thank you for joining us on the 2017 version of the mock draft. And as always, we appreciate your participation in it.
Thanks, Bill.
And that was Chuck Hale, the third-year GM for the New York Jets. Chuck's been with us since the very beginning on that. And we will be moving back now to the San Diego Chargers. I said San Diego Chargers because they are the San Diego Chargers. So, not L.A. in my mind.
Los Angeles Chargers. It says here, Queen USA Today. I'm just letting you know that.
Well, I disagree with them. It's like the Oakland Raiders when they moved to L.A.
Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, with the Oakland, LV, L.A. They were always the Oakland Raiders. It didn't matter where they were at. And now the Rams, I don't have a problem with that because they were
St. Louis.
They were the L.A. Rams.
Los Angeles, St. Louis.
Could have become the Baltimore Rams, who knows. But anyhow, we moved to the Chargers. The Chargers are left, according to what we've seen, the only picks that are available there, they had Malik Hooker and Jonathan Allen on their wish list, so they're both gone. So let's see where Zach goes with this one.
I think that last pick, I'm not so sure Gareon Conley would have been my choice. You have Kevin King out of Washington, 6'3" corner. I think I would have gone King, but Conley's pretty solid.
Yeah. And we have Zach Hrabak, the GM for the San Diego Chargers, another 3-year veteran. Zach, hello again.
Unfortunately, they're the LA Chargers now.
What's that?
So unfortunately, they're the LA Chargers now.
Yes. Well, and they're going to remain the San Diego Chargers in my mind for forever. But Zach,
Yeah, me too.
we were looking at some of the projections. They had Malik Hooker and Jonathan Allen as the top 2 likely picks for the Chargers. Both of those guys are now gone. I'll run these down for you. Myles Garrett, Solomon Thomas, Marshon Lattimore, Jamal Adams, Malik Hooker, and in the 6th round, the 6th pick, the Jets took Gareon Conley. So,
I know the Chargers, they just took Hunter Henry, so I was going to say O.J. Howard would be a good pick.
Right.
And definitely Malik Hooker, if he was around, I think they would be interested in him.
Right.
But I think the Chargers at this point would probably trade down because they're moving to a 4-3 defense, and there's not many defensive tackles, which would be one of the biggest needs there.
Right.
But I would say offensive line, they might reach on that and go for Cam Robinson.
Okay. So you're going to
So
go.
I think the Chargers.
So are you going to go with Cam Robinson there, or?
Chargers will go with Cam Robinson.
Okay. So offensive tackle from Alabama, Cam Robinson goes to the Chargers, and I don't think you can go wrong with that pick. I think Cam Robinson, whether some people say he may not be a pure left tackle, but at the very worst, he's a pretty big kid that could be a guard, and he'll be in the league for 10 to 12 years.
He definitely has the build, and he's a nasty player. He's a guy that you could line up at right tackle or guard, and he's going to be a big mauler. So I think he'd be a pretty decent pick.
Okay, so we've got Cam Robinson going to the San Diego Chargers / LA Chargers. And Zach, thanks for the pick there, and we'll be back with you again a little bit later.
Sounds good.
Okay. So what do you think about that, guys? Cam Robinson, good pick there for the Chargers?
Sure. It's the Chargers. Who cares?
Yeah.
I think
L.A. or San Diego. I mean, it's the Chargers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Cam Robinson's pretty good. I think there are a couple of guys that you could choose. I think Zach was correct. If this was a real draft, I think that he would trade down because you don't want to reach for an offensive tackle or defensive tackle at this point. But I think Cam Robinson is probably the most solid at this point, even though he's projected late first round. I don't think he has
even in the second round in some cases.
So I don't think he has the most upside of the tackles in this draft, but I think he's probably the safest tackle pick in this draft.
I think Garrett Bowles, who's kind of unheralded, the offensive tackle out of Utah. Everything I hear about him now, he doesn't have the refined skills yet, but as far as pure nastiness and the type of guy that's going to be successful in the NFL, Garrett Bowles seems to be the guy that a lot of teams are pointing at, and that might be where the Chargers would have went had they got in there. But I don't know that. I agree with you. I think the Chargers are going to be one of those ones that are going to consider a trade down with somebody. And, we got Mark Scovanner here. Mark Scovanner was a regular contributor for us on WALH for many years, and he is back with us. He will be in the hot seat for the Bengals here in just a couple minutes. And so let's take a look at the next team. And we're going to be making this pick, guys. The Carolina Panthers. So the TalkTV.us crew is going to select for the Panthers. Likely picks out of mock drafts, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, Jonathan Allen, and Solomon Thomas. We don't have to worry about either of those guys since they're gone. They do have a priority of running back and tight end, followed by inside linebacker and offensive tackle. What say you guys? What do you think?
Well, yeah, according to mine, it says, Christian McCaffrey, but that was with Leonard Fournette going early. So if he's still available, probably Leonard.
Yeah, I think Leonard Fournette, because just the type of offense that they run, I think they need a bruising running back more than the shifty, do-everything kid out of Stanford. I think Leonard Fournette's probably the best pick of that choice. Because that's what they've had with Cam Newton. They've had, Jonathan Stewart over the years. They've just had these big, physical, bruising running backs.
Yeah, they don't tend to be the Dalvin Cook kind of team.
Yeah, that's the only way they're going to keep the quarterback upright. Cam Newton.
Right, and they have to
give him a solid running game, and don't require him to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game.
And Cam Newton's getting a little mileage on him because of all the wear and tear and
Takes a lot of hits.
Yeah, and I mean, even in his college career, since he ran the ball so much, that accumulates. They talk about running backs in college having 400 carries. Le'Veon Bell, that was a question about him as coming into the NFL. He'd been used a lot in college. Cam Newton's a version of that as a quarterback. Because he ran the ball a lot, and now he's picking up these little injuries that he usually didn't get as a college player. So I guess we're in agreement.
Hit a little harder than the NFL.
Just a little faster too.
Just a little.
So we're in agreement that Leonard Fournette, the running back out of LSU, is going to become a Carolina Panther. So congratulations to him, and we will move on to Mark Scovanner's here, and we've got the Bengals coming up. Mark, we've got you right here. Likely picks that were on the board for them. Everybody is still in play. Reuben Foster, a linebacker out of Alabama. Wide receiver John Ross out of Washington, who is just the fastest guy.
He's fast.
He's just the fastest guy in the combine. Actually set the record for combine 40. Derek Barnett from Tennessee, defensive end, and Mike Williams, wide receiver from Clemson.
Well, also Jonathan Allen, defensive tackle.
Well, Jonathan Allen left us.
Is he gone already?
Yeah, Jonathan Allen went.
Where'd he go?
No, he didn't. Jonathan Allen is still there.
Jonathan Allen's still available.
Okay, so Mark, you are in the hot seat.
I mean, in terms of the Bengals for needs, I mean, if anyone's been following the Bengals fans have been following the offseason for them, it's been just a mass exodus outside of Cincinnati.
Yep.
We've lost starting offensive linemen, starting defensive linemen, defensive ends, starting backup running backs, linebackers. We just cut one of our starters for the last Ray Maluga for the last few years. So what I really wanted, hopefully there was an outstanding offensive lineman for them to take, but there's nothing. What I was thinking when I was...
Are you looking at a tackle? I mean, because I know they lost Zeitler to the Browns and that.
And Whitworth to the Rams.
Whitworth also, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, they just weren't going to pay a guy like Whitworth when he's 34, going on 35 quickly. So, I was hoping there'd be a plethora of O-linemen to choose from in this year's draft, but it's not looking that way. So, there is defensive needs. The Bengals need to sheer up too, because we lost defensive ends, we've lost linebackers. You know, guy off the edge is really a key need for the Bengals right now. And what I've seen out of the young gentleman from Tennessee, is probably the pick they're going to have to go with.
Okay.
Or I'll go with.
So Derek Barnett,
Derek Barnett.
He's got 33 sacks during his career at Tennessee. Started 3 years. Looks like he has a high motor, so we're going to go with Derek Barnett, the defensive end from Tennessee. Guys, what do you think?
Sure. I mean, there's other people I think are, Reuben Foster. I mean, I think I'd be looking at him, but yeah, I don't know that. I'm not familiar with this guy too much.
I just think there's more, if I can use a draft cliche, upside with Barnett. Alabama players tend to be Nick Saban coaches them so well and trains them so well that's what you see is what you get. They never really increase. So
right.
I tend to shy away from, even though there's 30,000 Alabama options available in the first 50 picks.
Well, Barnett, I've seen him on half a dozen draft boards, so I would say that he is definitely a guy that he's going to be a first-round player, whether he goes to the Bengals or wherever he goes. But Derek Barnett is considered a solid player. Greg, what do you think about Barnett as the pick there?
Yeah, I think they do need help at linebacker, but in the top 10, I would much rather have a guy who gets after the quarterback as opposed to a linebacker. The value at defensive end is significantly higher. Reuben Foster, there are some question marks about his diluted sample, his issue at the combine.
Diluting the sample.
So there are some character issues there with him. Derek Barnett, I mean, like you said, with 30-plus sacks in his college career. We've seen the Browns take a defensive end in this draft. We've seen the Bengals take a defensive end in this draft.
Yep.
Like we said, it's either a quarterback, an offensive tackle, a corner, or a guy to get after the quarterback. And so far in the AFC North, I almost call it the AFC Central, the AFC North, they're taking guys to get after these quarterbacks because, like we said, the AFC North has some really good quarterback play.
Yeah.
When did the Houston Texans, or not the Houston Texans, the Houston Oilers, we're going AFC Central. When did the Houston Oilers?
The Oilers just picked a little while ago. They took Malik Hooker. But, I still call them the Houston Oilers too. So some of us never move on from that stuff. But, yeah, I think that that's a good pick. I think the Bengals would be well served there. And the thing is, what we've seen in the NFL is we assume that these guys are going to play with their hand in the dirt, but that doesn't always happen. They will try the guys up on their feet. Maybe he's a guy that they'll play in some kind of zone situations and that. And so you don't know. It just depends on the defensive philosophy.
Especially in those 3-4 defenses you see a lot in the NFL.
Right.
They like to take those athletic DNs in
Right.
college and stick them outside an outside linebacker. And the Bengals just picked up Kevin Minter from the Cardinals.
Right.
175 career tackles, 4 sacks. I mean, that dude's going to replace Maluga, no problem. So that's why I went defensive end first.
One little interesting tidbit here. It says Barnett actually broke Reggie White's school sack record.
I did. I failed to bring that up, but you're exactly right, Charlie. He is now the sack leader at Tennessee, and if you rewrite the books and Reggie White is the guy that you're taking out of the record books, I guess you're pretty good.
Yeah, and Derek Barnett, like you said, he could play with his hand in the dirt or stand him up because he is that little bit of a tweener size at 6'3", about 260. So he's not that 270, 280-pound defensive end that can only play with his hand in the dirt.
Okay. So that takes us to the 10th pick of the draft, and that would put us with the Buffalo Bills. That's going to be the TalkTV.us crew discussing the pick there. We're going to make the pick for the Bills. The consensus opinions on the mock drafts have Corey Davis, the wide receiver from Western Michigan, the tight end from Alabama, O.J. Howard, 6'6", quarterback Mitch Trubisky from North Carolina, and Jamal Adams, the safety from LSU, is off the board, so he is not eligible for this. Any thoughts about the Bills? Their needs are cornerback, number one. Secondary needs are quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and their third-tier needs are defensive line, outside linebacker, and inside linebacker. So at this point, guys, do you go with the best available athlete? I mean, despite the corner might be the guy that you're looking at, but we already have Gareon Conley and Marshon Lattimore gone off the board.
Malik Hooker's gone, too,
Malik
right?
Hooker's gone. So the secondary is starting, although it is a deep draft. And then Greg brought up Kevin King out of Washington. But do you go with the best available player here, or are you now starting to specifically look for the best player at a need?
I think it's tough because right now the best available player is Jonathan Allen. I don't know if they need a defensive tackle.
It says third tier need is a defensive lineman.
Yeah, I just think in the top 10, I don't think you go with your third tier need. I think you try to get somebody for impact. And you are now, we don't know how much longer Tom Brady is going to be playing, but you are in the same division with Tom Brady, and for the last 15 years has been able to torch NFL secondary. So if it were me, I would be looking to either a safety or a corner. But that's
So who would be your pick there if it were you?
Outside of Marshon Lattimore, I think King is the number one corner.
Okay.
But then they're also looking at safety. I have seen some mock drafts, and I don't think this is the right choice, but I've seen some mock drafts where Jabril Peppers is in there just because of his diversity.
Yeah.
Because he can play multiple positions. Again, I don't think that's the best choice.
Yeah, but not
because,
well.
No, and that's the thing.
He's a
but
subpar.
a lot of these guys have fallen in love with Peppers because of the multiple positions. And that's what the Patriots have done. But Patriots are taking guys that are more athletic and play better.
The knock on Jabril Peppers, actually, I was just reading about him this morning. They said that actually Michigan did him a disservice by really not putting him primarily into a spot and letting him develop. And so it's going to be upon the NFL team that drafts him to develop him into what they want him to be. Now, that can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing because he's behind the curve now as far as being refined at any particular position.
I think it's going to be, if he goes to like a New England, they'll be able to take his just pure raw
athletic
talent,
ability.
turn him into something ridiculous.
And that would be the type of place that Jabril Peppers has a chance. If he's going to go into a place like Cleveland or Cincinnati where they want to plug him into a spot and need immediate production, he's going to be in a difficult situation, I think. What about the tight end, Charlie?
I think I'm going Kevin King. I agree with him.
Would Greg?
I agree with him. Kevin King is probably the best available. And personally, I think the one guy from Ohio State went way too early. The guy that the Jets took,
Conley.
way too early.
I agree
So
with that.
Conley would probably be there at this point, and that's probably maybe him or
Maybe.
Kevin King. Yeah.
And I would go, and my thinking is, from an offensive perspective, I would go with O.J. Howard here, and purely because of this. Tom Brady's been blessed to have great tight ends, big targets in the middle of the field, and you've just re-signed Tyrod Taylor. You want to give this guy a chance to be successful. You put the 6'6" tight end out there against the smaller safeties, and I think that could be a good move for Buffalo if they went that route, but
So you're thinking like the tight end from Miami?
no, the tight end from Alabama, O.J. Howard. I would think that would be, that's where I would go. But we've got two people.
Well, he hasn't went yet, so yeah.
Well, we've got two guys in consensus that Kevin King will be the.
And I think with the background there in Buffalo, the coaching staff, I think the secondary, I really think that's where they're going to go. And they haven't done anything to help out the quarterback play, so I don't really anticipate them doing that now. But I would agree. I think if they were to go offense, I think O.J. Howard would be the pick. But I think with the pedigree that coaching staff has, I think they're going to go with in the secondary.
Surprised O.J. Howard's actually still there.
Well, O.J. Howard's kind of an interesting guy, and we'll see how this goes during the draft because he's got a world of talent. Ozzie Newsome was talking about him the other day and said that he's one of the rare guys that he believes that can play with his hand in the dirt. You can attach him as a true tight end, but then again, you can walk him out, and he becomes a threat as a big 6'6" target. I think he's an interesting player, and we will see what happens with O.J. Howard down through the draft.
I think he'll drop because of pure need. I mean, there's not a.
I think if it gets to the Steelers would be a team that they
need to replace
Heath Miller since he retired. The Bengals the Steelers have been kind of nondescript at that position, and I would believe that would be something that we would see them do. But okay, so we're going to move to the New Orleans Saints, which I'm doing the Saints this year. The Saints need an edge rusher. They need an inside linebacker. They need a corner. They need a third-tier need of a running back, which I think they may take care of through free agency. So when I look at it, they had Gareon Conley on their list. And he is gone. Derek Barnett is gone. Marshon Lattimore is gone. Taco Charlton. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't see it with Taco Charlton, the defensive end out of Michigan. I thought, of course, I'm an Ohio State guy, so I may be a little bit, maybe a little bit prejudiced on this. I didn't think that their defense was lights out for a good part of the year, especially towards the end. And I think that he is a little bit overvalued to go this high in the draft. Reuben Foster was going to be my pick, and I think I'm going to stay with him because New Orleans will take chances on guys like that. And I think Reuben Foster was there. I just ruined.
Just took my Indianapolis pick if he was still there.
I just knocked Charlie's legs out from underneath him on that one. But and that all being said, O.J. Howard's sitting there at 12, and you got Drew Brees, and you can put a 6'6" target in the middle of the field.
It's true.
Do they look at trying to help? I mean, because Brees is going to play 2-3 years, maybe at best. Of course, I say that. Who knows? He could be 41 years old and still throwing for 5,000 yards. But O.J. Howard could possibly be a guy they would consider to give Drew Brees a big target.
I think so. But I also think their offense isn't their issue.
No, it isn't.
Their defense has been porous, to say the least, over the last few years.
Yeah.
So I think that's where they're going to go. But yeah, if they took O.J. Howard, if he was still available, it wouldn't surprise me.
No.
I think if he is still on the board at number 11, I think they give a good long look at taking O.J. Howard because you're right. He could fill multiple roles as a tight end.
He gives Brees another target. Now, I think the problem will be I think New Orleans, like we talked about maybe with, was it Carolina? Some of these teams the Bengals may look to get out of that spot if the player they really covet is not there. And I don't know that the Saints would stay at 11. They may trade down a few spots if, say, for instance, Tennessee's sitting at 18 and there's somebody, they want O.J. Howard, they could move up because Marcus Mariota would probably love to have a 6'6" tight end. So I could see Tennessee and New Orleans doing something there. But I'm for, just based on the way they've played the past year, their need is on defense, and I'm going to go with Reuben Foster, the inside linebacker from Alabama. And so then, we're back to Michael Fritz and the Cleveland Browns and their second first-round pick. Guys, will they go with Mitch Trubisky here?
I think it would be a mistake. I think that their quarterback that they have from USC, I forget his name now.
Cody Kessler.
I think he'll be all right if they give him some weapons.
Right.
I don't think the quarterback is their biggest issue, which is hard for me to say with as many quarterbacks they've had come through there the last 20 years. But I think going somewhere else would be a better option.
Man, you got Howard still
All right,
available.
you've reached Michael.
And
I think he's scared to make this pick. He doesn't. He wants to pull the trigger on Trubisky. But
Well, it's like with the first pick, we weren't able to get a hold of him right away. I think he's lighting up the phones, trying to make a trade.
He is.
That non-existent trade.
he's taking a lot of calls right now. He was watching a draft day last night over and over again, trying to get in the Kevin Costner mindset.
Last time it's worked out for him.
You heard about the Browns trade this week, didn't you?
what was
With
that?
the Patriots, they got Aaron Hernandez.
Oh,
Too soon, Charlie.
You're laughing. You thought it was funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be something Cleveland would do. All right, this guy here is dead.
hang in there.
It's like Major League when, they give him the rosters.
Cross him off there.
Exactly. So,
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
Mike might have a hard time moving around in his apartment. It's kind of spacious in there, so...
And this is the pick from Philadelphia, the one they went up and got.
Yes.
Connor Wentz.
Yeah, they should have...
Or Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz. We will give Mike one more shot.
I mean, you guys see that coming? The Carson Wentz and Goff switcheroo. I didn't see it. They didn't let Goff play until 3/4 of the season was over.
Yeah, I didn't see Wentz playing right away. I think the thing about Carson Wentz that why, if I were the Cleveland Browns, I would have considered him, is he's built like an AFC North quarterback. He's played in cold weather. He's played in, although he plays in the dome, but the teams they play are in bad weather. I think he made a lot of sense for the Browns to go that route. But, again, whether they thought he was ready.
Making a lot of sense in a Cleveland Browns draft is not, they don't really go hand in hand.
My statement made more sense.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, if Cleveland would have had the quarterback of the future a couple years ago, when Derek Carr was still available and they bypassed
He tortures
him.
me.
Well,
it's true.
It's true. They bypassed him to trade up to get Johnny Football. If they would have taken Carr, which was everyone thought that was the right move.
Yep.
We wouldn't be having this conversation. The Browns would be on the right.
They'd have their
on the right track.
Right.
Or it's a Houston Carr situation, and a bad team ruins a career.
And that's the other part of it. But hey, Mike, Fritz, this is Bill Hrabak. We're back here at the NFL Draft. Mike, you're up, and I will run this down for you. Myles Garrett. Of course, you took Myles Garrett first. Solomon Thomas went to San Francisco. Marshon Lattimore went to Chicago. Jamal Adams went to Jacksonville. Malik Hooker went to Tennessee. Gareon Conley went to the Jets. Cam Robinson went to the San Diego Chargers. Leonard Fournette went to the Panthers. Derek Barnett went to the Bengals. Kevin King went to the Buffalo Bills. Reuben Foster just went to the New Orleans Saints, which leaves you with the next pick. And what is your thinking process here? The Browns have talked a lot about quarterbacks. O.J. Howard, the big tight end from Alabama, is still sitting there. What are you thinking?
Well, I think it basically comes down to those two, because the quarterback, is always the need, and you got to ask yourself the question: do you go get a quarterback now, or do you wait and see? And if any of your guy you wanted even there in the second round, or trade up in the first, or do you risk and take him now? Or O.J. Howard there used to be but like a very good athlete, a great tight end prospect there, and just a great playmaker to have on the offense.
And Cleveland had a tight end from Alabama years ago that turned out to be a pretty good draft choice in Ozzie Newsome. So maybe lightning will strike twice in the same place if they would go with an Alabama tight end.
Yeah, you never know.
So Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, what's your feeling about those two? They're both sitting there. The Browns have rumored to have scouted Trubisky in every game this year, so that leads you to believe there is an interest. What are you thinking?
Well, I think of the two prospects, I definitely like Trubisky better, but he's also a bigger question mark because, the lack of starts. He was kind of a one-year wonder there.
Right.
But he's got the arm and he's got the measurables to be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Right. So where does that put you with your decision?
Tough one. But
You're
I think
going
in
to
this
trade out?
situation, the Browns are going to have to take. I think they'll have to go with Mitch Trubisky there.
Mitch Trubisky, the quarterback out of North Carolina. Well, if what we hear out of the Cleveland front office is correct, that would be the way Cleveland would like that to happen. But we will see. We will see if that is the case. And Mike, thanks for participating in the draft again. Third year you've done it. And look forward to having you back next year again.
All right, thanks, guys. See you later.
And so Mike Fritz pretty much goes to what the belief is. Now, I don't know, guys, if it'll really happen that way or not. But, I will say this about Trubisky. The only thing I'll say in defense of him is because of the Browns' current perception amongst players. Myles Garrett made fun of the Browns. Deshaun Watson made fun of the Browns, about being picked by them. Mitch Trubisky's from Cleveland, played for Menor High School. And if you look at Bernie Kosar wanted to come back to Cleveland to play. And I think if you find a quarterback, especially, that wants to go somewhere like Cleveland and play, I think that puts you a step ahead because there's no breaking an attitude about coming to the Browns. So I think that would be useful. Trubisky, from what I've read, is very similar to Dak Prescott and Derek Carr in this sense. He is a no-nonsense type of kid, watches a lot of film. He understands the work ethic that it takes to be a quarterback. And that's what would make me feel more comfortable about them than the guy that's the media darling like Johnny Manziel. So, and I'm not saying he's going to be successful, but I feel more comfortable with Mitch Trubisky than I did with Johnny Manziel when they picked him.
Well, yeah.
But everybody,
Johnny Manziel was a giant question mark for any team.
But you got to admit, there was all this hype. Everybody wants. The Browns.
Johnny football.
If you looked at his film from TAMU, it was a lot of scramble and just chuck it up to Mike Williams
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans. Yeah. Just scramble and go and scramble and go. And it's just that is not NFL. You want to see a guy sit in the pocket and wait out and take a hit as he throws.
But he won. That's the thing.
Yeah,
he was a winner.
He won. He beat Alabama.
And so did Tim Tebow. He won. And
that's right.
What sport is he playing right now?
But that's a big part of it.
We're talking about Mitch Trubisky, and I've heard the argument that he's from Cleveland, and I don't think that matters because I understand what you're saying. If he wants to come play for Cleveland, 'cause this is his hometown team, I understand that. Right. But if he can't play, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where he's from. I think the top four quarterbacks, Trubisky, Watson, Kaiser, and Mahomes, I honestly don't think there's too much of a difference between the four of them. So why not get another position that you absolutely need and then get whoever of those four is available later on? Because I just don't see Trubisky being the guy. They just need far too much help. I think going with O.J. Howard would have been a better choice in that.
Well, they could have ran
I agree.
They could have ran a little 21 personnel, which would be good because you've already got Barnett there, and you could go double tight to give a little more protection.
They also just gave Barnett a payday last season. So.
Yeah. So I mean, you could have a nice double tight. They lost Terrell Pryor. So you're replacing a 6'6" guy with a 6'6" guy, so you still have a big target.
Where did he go prior? Where did he go?
The Redskins.
Okay.
And I think what the Browns could have done is they have 2 second-round picks. They could have traded back up into the later round, the first round, maybe not to get Trubisky, but I think that Patrick Mahomes who is generally gaining steam as maybe the best physical specimen of the quarterbacks. If you're going to take a project quarterback, you might as well take the guy with the ability that has a chance to play.
What is everybody so down on Deshaun Watson for? From my perspective, how many Ohio State secondary people have we just picked in this draft so far? 2.
Well,
the first 10,
but
and he sliced them up. And he sliced them up in the national game.
He didn't really slice them up. If you watch the film, the secondary was all over those receivers. It was the Ohio State offense that gave the field position to Clemson.
Yeah,
and I don't care how good your defense is, you're not going to be able to stack up against that.
We could beat this horse to death, and I've said there was one play that changed that game when even it was 17-0. Ohio State got on a drive. They threw that interception down at the 5-yard line when he tried to fit it into Curtis Samuel. Ohio State scores there at 17-7, and the defense has kept them in. I think the defense fourth quarter was deflated by the fact the offense didn't give them any support. So I just don't know that. I think the thing on Watson is he seems to be disinterested, is what I've read in certain parts of games. His mind seems to wander.
Yeah, then that's a huge red flag.
Now, I agree with the Watson thing because in the biggest games, he stepped up and played his best. And that's something that you look for in a quarterback.
Right.
So, but then those other games against Pitt, for example.
So if you go,
he looked terrible
against Pitt, right?
Yeah,
and
so
if you go 8-8,
consistency.
because 8 games you decide to play and 8 games you're wherever. See, I would be.
That'll get you cut in the NFL.
Yeah, but for the Browns, you go 8-8, you're up there with Bernie, and
He won't go 8,
guys.
but he wouldn't go 8-8 though. That's the thing. So, anyhow, I don't know that Deshaun Watson. I just think that all these guys have some questions, and I would say that if although Cleveland's invested tons of money in watching Trubisky, so they apparently like something about him. So,
and poor Mike Fritz as a GM. I mean, no one has gotten this much scrutiny from their pick.
Yeah.
But Mike Fritz, we're just railing on the poor guy.
Yeah.
And he even said in his defense, it was a tough choice.
But you know what? Mike went back to sleep a few minutes ago, so he's not he's not even worried about this right now. But yeah, that is where the Browns go, and I think that was again a tough pick. O.J. Howard, I would have been tempted to take Howard, and as I said, I would have probably traded up later in the round if one of the quarterbacks were there that I thought I could get him.
Right.
And I would have done that. But anyhow, we're off to the next pick.
Off to the desert.
And, hey, it's our buddy Dave Parrish out in Kansas City. He's going to be picking for the Cardinals. The Cardinals don't need a quarterback. They need a quarterback behind Carson Palmer, who's not going to play too much longer, maybe one more year. A wide receiver, offensive guard. Secondary tier is cornerback, and third tier need is safety. Dave Parrish, this is Bill Hrabak at TalkTV.us with the 2017 mock draft. And how are you today?
I'm okay. How's things in Clinton County, Ohio?
Good. Well, the new studios have moved to Fayette County.
Oh.
So we don't have to reside in a county that's named after the Clintons.
Easy. Wrong show.
Thank goodness for that, right? So,
Yes, thank goodness for that.
yes. So, anyhow, if we take a look at the Cardinals' needs, according to several sources, they are shopping for a backup to Carson Palmer. They need a wide receiver, offensive line help in the form of possibly a guard. Cornerback is a secondary need, and their third-tier need is a safety. How do you see it with the draft here?
I think with the backup quarterback position that they need to prioritize, and everything I've been reading, next year might be a better group of quarterbacks in the draft.
I agree.
So, I'm thinking, they're going to pass on that and go with a wide receiver.
It's a tough. It just depends on drafting quarterbacks is kind of like buying a used car. You're just really not quite sure what you're going to get.
That's it.
So where would you go if you don't go with the quarterback? And I won't be shocked if you take an offensive lineman since you're an offensive line coach.
Actually, no, I eliminated that from the process about 2 hours ago. I got to narrow down to two, and I'm probably going to go with Corey Davis, the wide receiver out of Western Michigan.
Okay.
But and I had it between Mike Williams, the wide receiver out of Clemson, and Corey Davis.
You're right.
You know, everything I read, like they compared Corey Davis to a Eric Decker type receiver, which, you know, that isn't all bad.
No.
And his routes, you know, they say he runs perfect routes. He has great hands, and he has speed to be, you know, to step right in there and play next year for the Arizona Cardinals.
Does it scare you that he played at Western Michigan and, you know, the MAC, or is that just, do you think that's no longer a factor after Khalil Mack came in and was so successful in the NFL?
Well, that was one of the big knocks that I read about him, you know, when he played in the MAC. But, you know, look what he did to the defensive backs in the MAC. I mean, he was like a man amongst boys in that league. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, one of the things I read about him this morning was that he struggled against Ohio State's secondary, which, of course, if you're not familiar with what's happened, the Buckeyes have had Lattimore, Conley, and Hooker have all went in the top 10 picks.
Right.
So if that...
You know, he's got a pretty good mentor there in Larry Fitzgerald that, you know, can bring this along. Because I think the young man has all the tools.
Yeah, and I think Fitzgerald, he's retiring, isn't he, guys, after this year?
It's got to be coming close. He's got to be the last year or two.
I think he announced at the end of the season that he was going to play one more year. So you're right, Dave. They're probably going to bring somebody in. Hopefully they can grow underneath Fitzgerald and become that number one receiver.
Yeah, they got to bring in some youth because Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald are their signature players,
Right.
and one's 37.
Right.
I think the other one's 137.
That's true.
So-
That's true. He played on Moses' team.
No doubt.
So,
Like Corey Davis, now he just had ankle surgery.
Yes.
How's he? Is he okay after the ankle surgery? Does anybody know?
They said that everything went well from what I read up with.
Okay.
okay. Well, Dave, you'll be busy fellow here. You'll be back with us for a couple more picks, and we thank you for joining us for the Cardinals pick at number 13.
Not a problem.
Okay. And that was Dave Parrish picking for the Cardinals. Now we will go to West Palm Beach, and Steve Smith will be making a pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. Guys, it says needs edge runner, cornerback, running back, secondary need, offensive tackle. I think this is where we might see Christian McCaffrey go, because they've been looking for that Brian Westbrook kind of player that can catch the ball, run the ball, can help in the return game, which Westbrook did so well for the Eagles. Of course, under a different philosophy. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's between Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
I think Dalvin Cook is the better running back. I think Christian McCaffrey is the better all-around player because, like you said, he can catch the ball in the backfield, he can run the ball, he can return the ball. Dalvin Cook isn't a terrible pass catcher.
No.
He didn't do it a whole lot at Florida State, but if they went with Christian McCaffrey, I wouldn't be too surprised. I think the best running back left available is Joe Mixon. I don't think he's going to go with this pick just because of all the off-the-field issues with Mixon.
Good point.
If they went with McCaffrey or Cook or Dalvin Cook, it would not surprise me, and I think it'd be a good choice.
Mark, what you're thinking?
I mean, I saw Christian McCaffrey slice up Iowa in the bowl game, but he struggled mightily last season at Stanford, and I don't know if I'm looking running back.
Okay.
You got to go Dalvin Cook. I just don't. I think he needs to put some weight on, and Christian McCaffrey is a little too small.
Steve Smith, this is Bill Hrabak at TalkTV.us with the 2017 mock draft. How are you today?
Good, Bill. How you doing?
We're doing fine. I'm joined here by Greg Henning and Charlie Hargrave and Mark Scovanner, and we are through 13 picks in the first round.
Okay.
I can run those down for you if you need.
Yeah. Is there a list online I can see or no?
Greg, do you have that online anywhere? Okay. Well, let's run them down so our listeners can see where we're at with this. Number 1, Myles Garrett went to Cleveland. Number 2, Solomon Thomas went to San Francisco. Number 3, Marshon Lattimore went to Chicago. Number 4, Jamal Adams went to Jacksonville. Number 5, Malik Hooker went to Tennessee. Number 6, Gareon Conley went to the New York Jets. Number 7, Cam Robinson went to San Diego. Number 8, Leonard Fournette went to the Panthers. Number 9, Derek Barnett went to the Bengals. Number 10, Kevin King, the cornerback from Washington, went to Buffalo. Number 11, Reuben Foster, inside linebacker, Alabama, went to New Orleans. Number 12, Mitch Trubisky, quarterback, North Carolina, went to the Browns. And number 13, the pick right before you, Corey Davis, the wide receiver from Western Michigan, went to the Cardinals.
Okay.
What do you see as the need, Steve, for the Eagles?
Well, looking over it, I would have to say right now they need a corner.
Okay.
With Nolan Farrell going to Dallas.
Okay.
I also see that there's nobody at 14 I want at corner.
Okay. Well.
So the pick here, because Darren Sproles ain't getting any younger, I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey out of Stanford, running back.
Okay. And we were pretty much in agreement that would be a way that they would go on that. If you had a choice of corner, of those guys that are gone, who would have been your pick there at 14?
Your guy, Conley.
Conley? Okay.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of mock drafts where Conley does end up with Philadelphia, so. Okay. Well.
I was surprised he went so early, but I can understand it. He's a good press man.
Yep. Yeah. And he's went up in, the value. He is one, the stock up, stock down type of thing. Conley's stock in the last several days has risen under the premise that he is probably technique-wise the most refined corner that's in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for sure.
Okay. Well, we will have you back in a little bit for the pick with Tampa Bay. And, of course, the Dolphins a little bit after that. So we will talk to you in a few minutes.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, thank you. So what do you think, guys? I mean, not a surprise. We talked about McCaffrey there. And
No, I think he's right. I think corners are number one need. The number one need. I mean, the guys right now you have Chidobe Awuzie from Colorado, Tre'Davious White from LSU. I think Adoree Jackson is the best corner available.
Yep.
But again, he's a late first round, early second round guy. So, if you take him now, which I think he's going to be a very solid player.
Right.
I think that's a reach. I think you have other needs that you could also. This is a deep draft from top to bottom at corner. You can get another corner in the second, third round that can come in and start for you next year. But you don't have many Christian McCaffrey type players with this skill set.
And McCaffrey, what Mark was saying, he did have an unremarkable year, but I've been reading reports from the Combine about McCaffrey, and the 3-cone drill, he knocked it out of the park. He was the best of the running backs on that, and they said his lateral movement and that, NFL scouts were kind of drooling at what he did there. So now, again, you're taking running between cones, and now you've got running between 6'6", 280-pound guys.
I was going to say running away from Khalil Mack is a little different than running 3-cone drills. So
Yes, exactly.
I honestly don't put much stock at all into the NFL Combine. I think it's a utter waste of time and all for show and TV for the NFL.
Yeah, I think certain parts of it are. I think there are some things that,
I don't need to see offensive linemen do a 40-yard dash.
Right. Well, and the 40-yard dash, friends of mine in the NFL have said it's overrated. And they said that you have to balance productivity while they're in college with how fast they are. And he said some guys are really fast in college, can't translate to the NFL. But the guy that has the good vision and is productive is a guy that you might want to take. So, and McCaffrey was productive. Give him that. He was a productive player.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
so I think that at the very worst, again, like we talked about Myles Garrett with the Browns, if he can stick around for 8 to 10 years in the league, maybe he's never great, but he's a serviceable player, then it's not a completely wasted pick at that point. And you're going to get 5 years out of him anyhow to find out.
Yeah, and he could also play if he struggles at running back. He could stick him in returning kicks, and he probably could excel at that.
Yeah. Greg brought up a great point about Adoree Jackson. I think the thing with Jackson that I've been reading is, and I didn't realize this, he is an Olympian track runner. And they were talking about that he wants to continue to run track while he's in the NFL. And they said he has to make a decision that he wants to be an NFL player and walk away from that. Because not that it's a contact sport. You can blow a hamstring out running track and you can miss the whole year. So I think Adoree Jackson brings the added plus, if he decides he wants to play football, that he might be the best return man in the draft too. So, okay, well, let's get moving on, and that will take us to pick number 15. And Charlie Hargrave is on the clock finally.
And then I'll be out of here soon. Well, you guys are all dressed up. I didn't get the memo on that, but I do have my Bengals stuff on.
He does, so you're dressed up, man.
Even though that's the Indianapolis Colts. Well, I tell you, I had fun with this week because I had Paul and Matt Bliss, and Braden Bergstrom, 3 of my 8th graders, do some research.
They helped you.
They enjoyed it, actually, trying to look up who it was. But they come up, they wanted Reuben Foster first, and of course, he's already gone.
Right.
And I did a little research on my own, and they saw this. And according to what this other research tells me, the defense is pretty stocked in this draft.
Yes.
But offensive linemen are maybe not quite as...
it's not the best draft, although I think there are a couple good players there, but it just depends on what you need.
And this is from somebody smarter than me, but I think we're going to go with Forrest Lamp, offensive lineman out of Western Kentucky. So that's just what we're going to go with. He seems like the best. He can plug in at right tackle, and they got to protect Luck. I mean, Luck, he's got this surgically repaired shoulder, and I don't know if he's necessarily the best one, but he was the best one according to this research.
Forrest Lamp has got a lot of love. I have to admit, he has been on the knock on him, and I have seen him in the second half of the first round as he's an offensive guard. And normally guards don't go that high in the draft.
All right.
But they said that he does have the ability to move around on the offensive line, so he can plug different holes. And I don't think that that's a bad pick by any means, because the Colts do need offensive linemen. Guys, what's your thinking on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, Gil Brandt in his rankings ranked him the 3rd best offensive tackle in the draft. So even though he played guard in college, everyone's expecting him to go tackle. Right, which...
He's a big, powerful kid, and I think that, again, we're seeing more and more in recent years the kids that are coming out of the MAC, they're coming out of the American Conference.
You can it's a great pick for the Colts because they're a different team when
they keep them up. They keep Luck upright.
Luck upright, exactly right.
Yeah, they had to pick an offensive lineman because their offensive line has been pretty bad the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. My concern about Lamp is, as a tackle, he's a little short. He's I say only 6'4", but for an NFL offensive lineman, he's a little bit shorter than they would like.
Right.
And also, concern is, if you're athletic enough to play tackle in the NFL, why did you play guard? Why did you play in the interior at Western Kentucky?
Right.
So I think he's a very solid player. I think he's going to be a good NFL player.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of concerns there is all.
And I think the thing that we have to look at, and we don't know, and I'm sure the NFL researches this, is why was he playing guard there? And maybe it was a need that the coach had at Western Kentucky, because he's not getting him ready for the NFL.
Yeah.
He needs to win games to keep his job at Western Kentucky. So if guard is where they needed him, that's where they put him.
In their system, the right guard is their best athlete. Every offensive system is slightly different. So and there's a lot of reasons for that, and that would be a question that I would have.
And maybe they see a lot of defenses where they cover the guards. Mm-hmm. And that was a problem for them, so they put the best lineman down. We could speculate all night on that, but I don't think it's a bad pick. I think they do need offensive linemen. they do need defensive help, but I think that's a solid pick for the Colts there.
Well, guys, it's been fun. Have fun the rest of the afternoon. I'm going to take my wife and kid. We're going to go enjoy the outside on this beautiful
Charlie, you
day.
want to plug your show here? You guys will be starting here pretty
Yeah,
soon.
we're going to do some Keep Calm and Chaz on eventually, and that's the car show, talk show, and just kind of waiting Rick get everything settled out here. I think we're going to do one. We got to figure out when. We thought about doing it later this evening, but we'll probably do it at a different time.
Are you going to park cars in the showroom here?
No. Usually we do it out where there's cars at. We do a lot of these shows on there. You need to check it out because it's not just cars. It's kind of like almost like a little travel show.
Variety stuff.
We've done stuff from the prison, the Ohio Reformatory. We've done stuff from Ashland, Ohio. We did one of the most fun ones. If you ever get a chance to check it out on TalkTV.us, is we did one in the middle of a haunted junkyard last year. I was watching people.
No, thank you.
Nope. I tell you, it was fun.
Spirits and me do not get along.
You got to realize I drive 2 horses. Yeah.
Greg doesn't want to drive away with his car being possessed.
No, I've got enough issues.
And there's plenty of room in the back.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, Charlie, thanks for coming on and picking for the Colts.
Thanks. Have fun.
And we appreciate having you here, and we will obviously be talking to you here in the near future.
Yes.
Okay. And that is Charlie Hargrave. We're back to the TalkTV.us crew for the pick of the Baltimore Ravens.
As a Steelers fan, I think we should take the least productive player.
I was as a Bengals fan, I'm like, who can we pick?
We're going to take the wide receiver from Wilmington College.
So we've got a Browns. So we've got a Browns fan, a Steelers fan, a Bengals fan picking for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
This should go well.
Yeah. Looking at their needs, guys, it says that they need an edge player and defensive lineman.
Is this the same needs for every team?
No. Well, actually, it is interesting you say that because
like
I saw
everybody needs an
24 of the 32 teams, edge
And corner.
Edge and corner were right on there. So yeah,
and now they're not even. If you look at all the drafts now, it's not even. They don't even do like I was looking at the NFL rankings and things. And it's not defensive end and outside linebacker now. It's just their edge rusher.
Edge.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I was going through doing my research. Is they, like you're saying, if the guy's an outside linebacker and they can move him up on the line, well, then they don't want to designate him as a defensive end. So you're exactly correct. I mean, edge is the new term in the NFL.
Yeah, and one thing when I was going through, I was like, okay, why does every team need corners and edge rushers? Well, in my opinion, it's simple: is that the rules have been skewed toward the offense to put up as many points as you can.
Well, of course, you're a defense coordinator. You would.
Well, whether I was offensive coordinator, no, absolutely. But it makes sense because the rules are for to put points on the board because most people want to see points.
Right.
I absolutely get it. So now you have to pick guys that can stop your quarterback. Like I think I've said this 3 or 4 times now. Either get to the quarterback or shut down the number 1 receiver. So it makes sense that those are their needs.
Right.
The amount of running and the amount of passing in the last decade has basically flip-flopped.
Right.
And so what used to be you need that strong middle linebacker. That strong middle linebacker, you need him to be quick to cover the flats in the pass game, and so that's what you really need. Is you might have one good defensive end or one good outside linebacker, but you need two solid defensive ends and 2 solid outside linebackers nowadays because how much they pass.
Right. Well, one thing I listened to Gil Brandt talk about the change since when Brandt was the personnel director for the Cowboys, is the left tackles for a long time. He said, they were the best offensive linemen because they had the quickest feet because they were getting matched up with the guy like a Myles Garrett who could run a 4.5 40. And so you can't put a slow-footed...
At 6'4", 272, by the way.
Yeah, and you can't put a slow-footed guy in front of him or he's going to blow right by him. So what we've seen happen is defensive coordinators are out-scheming offensive line coaches by we're going to get the fastest guys we can find and you can't touch us or you're going to hold us, and so either way they're going to be in a bad way. So I think it is interesting. My thinking is if they're looking for a edge rusher here, my personal favorite, and he's ranked by Gil Brandt number 37th best player, He's from a small school. He's from Temple. Hassan Reddick,
Yep.
I think he's going to be an under-the-radar kind of guy, kind of like the Bud Dupree pick that the Steelers had. I think Hassan Reddick could end up being that next dominant kind of defensive player.
That's the guy I was going to say also, because he's the guy that the Steelers are looking at because of his ability to get after the quarterback. I don't think he's going to fall that far to the Steelers.
Right.
I think it'd be a perfect pick in this situation for the Ravens, because if you follow football, the Ravens and the Steelers, you could take the uniforms away from the players and you wouldn't know which team you're seeing.
Right. They
because
pretty much have the same philosophy.
Absolutely, and I think this. I don't want him to go to the Ravens, but I think this is a great pick for. I think to me, it's the guy that fits best with their needs.
What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, the only other person I was thinking was the kid Tim Williams from Alabama.
Yep.
But
I saw him on.
You can't go wrong with Hassan Reddick. Especially he's got that that little bit of that local Pennsylvania flavor too. So.
And he's got a big motor. I think he's gonna bring a.
Is that a Hemi?
Yeah, as a Hemi. Sure. And he'll be a good replacement for. I'm losing my man there, the Arizona State guy that played defensive end for the.
Terrell Suggs.
Terrell Suggs.
I kind of lost there for a minute. Yeah, Terrell Suggs.
Terrell Suggs.
Because he's an undersized guy too.
Right, and he was dominant at Arizona State, and very much like Hassan Reddick.
Right.
So, he was a little dominant in the NFL too for a few years.
Yeah, he was.
He was pretty good.
He was pretty good. So Hassan Reddick is going to be the guy that goes to the Ravens with number 16, and we're halfway through the draft, guys. So to run this down for our fans, number 1, Myles Garrett, the defensive end from Texas A&M, goes to the Cleveland Browns. Number 2, Solomon Thomas, the defensive end from Stanford, goes to the 49ers. Number 3, Marshon Lattimore, the corner from Ohio State, goes to the Bears. Jamal Adams, the strong safety from LSU, goes to Jacksonville. Malik Hooker, safety from Ohio State, goes to the Tennessee Titans. Gareon Conley, the cornerback from Ohio State, goes to the New York Jets. We have at number 7, Cam Robinson, the offensive tackle from Alabama, goes to the San Diego Chargers. At number 8, Leonard Fournette, running back, LSU, goes to the Carolina Panthers. Number 9, Derek Barnett, the defensive end from Tennessee, ends up with the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 10, Kevin King, cornerback, Washington, is now a Buffalo Bill. Number 11, Reuben Foster, inside linebacker from Alabama, ends up with New Orleans. Mitch Trubisky becomes the first quarterback in the draft to go. He ends up with the Cleveland Browns. Corey Davis, wide receiver, Western Michigan, goes to Arizona. Christian McCaffrey, the running back from Stanford, goes to Philadelphia. Forrest Lamp, the offensive lineman from Western Kentucky, is now with the Indianapolis Colts. And our last pick of the first round so far, number 16, Hassan Reddick, the defensive end from Temple, is now a Baltimore Raven. And guys, that brings us to number 17. And again, we are making this pick. It's the Washington Redskins. Safety, linebacker are identified as number 1 needs. Number 2, edge, corner, offensive guard, center. And so that's what they had listed as their needs. A lot of the guys that are here, Gareon Conley's gone. That was one that it was listed. And Reuben Foster's gone. A guy I don't know much about is Zach Cunningham, the outside linebacker from Vandy. What do you guys think about him?
I'm not sold on him. I know that's another one the Steelers are looking at, but it would make more sense at the number 30 pick. I'm not so sure at the number 17 pick.
Okay.
I think his production was fine, but to me, he's from Alabama, and there's a reason. Now, I know every school misses. You can't get everybody from your state, but I think there's a reason why Alabama passed on him and didn't. Because if Alabama recruits you, you're going to Alabama. You're not going to Vanderbilt.
Right.
I think he'll be okay. I don't think he's a top half of the draft pick.
Okay. Mark, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a guy that maybe not highly recruited. I mean, he went to Vanderbilt, but you see that Vanderbilt and you're thinking, oh, well, then he's not very good.
Right.
Or he's a lower tier type of player. However, some of the best players go to your Northwesterns and your Vanderbilts just on pure academics
Sure,
in the case. So,
sure.
And that, to me, that would be an upside for a guy like Cunningham.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's going to come in. He can think on his feet. He's going to be a good pick from that aspect. Hopefully a character guy, but that doesn't always guarantee anything. But, you would think going
But
to
you get more character guys out of Northwestern and Vanderbilt than you do Florida State.
Absolutely. Don't argue that. Mike Williams from Clemson is... we saw Mike Williams from Clemson torch the Buckeyes. He's still on the board. Now, do you think, and he's listed here as a possibility, do you really think after signing Terrell Pryor that they would go out now and take a first-round pick and they want to give Kirk Cousins some love. They want to give him targets. They've lost some wide receivers here.
Pierre Garçon is not there anymore.
Right, and Deshaun, help me guys, the guy from Philadelphia that they signed, he's gone.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me with Daniel Snyder.
Oh, Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if the Redskins went that direction because of Daniel Snyder. They need some help in the secondary also.
Right.
And it
They're
wouldn't.
not the Lions. They're not going to pick a million wide receivers.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the Redskins also kind of looked at Jabril Peppers because Mike Snyder would be the kind of guy that falls in love with somebody like that. You don't really know where the Redskins are going to go.
Right.
I think Jay Gruden has kind of gotten some respect, so I think he's got a little more pull around there than even Joe Gibbs had with Daniel Snyder.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And the Zach Cunningham thing, another thing about him, another positive thing I think is he can play inside and outside.
Sure.
So, and I think, and obviously in today's NFL, the more positions you can play, the better. So I just honestly I don't know where the Redskins are going to go with this.
If they have edge rusher here, and I'm going to throw some names out at you guys, Charles Harris, the defensive end from Missouri, he's a junior, or rather he did come out as a senior. Is a very good athlete. He's got a lot of recent love. You got Takaris McKinley, the defensive end from UCLA. A very productive player, and he reminds me of the linebacker that came out a couple years ago. I think he went to the Bears. Eric ended up being a really good player for the Bears, middle linebacker. The thing is, I think that UCLA with Jim Mora there does produce NFL-ready defensive players, and I think they look at that kind of thing. So Takaris McKinley maybe, and then one guy that I think is flying under the radar is a defensive end by the name of Jordan Willis, who's from Kansas State. And I think he's like one of the best kept secrets maybe in the draft. There's a lot of people are talking about Jordan Willis, and I think it's one of those ones that nobody wants to talk about too much because they don't want him to disappear off. I know the Cowboys. I've heard the Cowboys have a vested interest in him. So what do you think? I mean, did they go that way? Are they going to go offense? We still have O.J. Howard out there, and if they want to get a target.
Well, they have a pretty solid tight end. I'm blanking on his name now, but
I know who you're talking about. But would they want to go again? They could run 21 personnel? Bring in two good tight ends. You've got Terrell Pryor on the outside at 6'6". He creates some matchup problems.
I think with the way that NFC East is moving, you still have Eli Manning, you have Dak Prescott, you have Carson Wentz. I think going with a rusher, a guy that can get after the quarterback, I think would probably be their best option here. So I think you could either go with the kid out of Vanderbilt or UCLA in that way. I guess it depends on what you want. Cunningham can play both. Takaris McKinley, I mean, he's bigger, not quite as fast. I think between the two of them, I think McKinley has a little bit more upside, and I agree with what you said about Mora coaching at UCLA. But I think between the two of them, I think I would go with Cunningham.
Okay.
And I'm not sold on Cunningham, but
I'm kind of lukewarm about this whole thing myself. I like what Mark said, and I think that if character has anything to do with it, then you go with Zach Cunningham because you know that at least you're not going to worry about this guy going out and dropping his drawers on an elevator and to a bunch of women.
And I'm not sure. I'd go with Cunningham as well. I'm not sure of Mora's relationship with Gruden. I mean, I would assume it's nothing but cordial, but there's usually they have some kind of like connection to pick this high.
Sure. So outside linebacker from Vanderbilt, Zach Cunningham is now a Washington Redskin, and now we're going to be back on the phones, and we've got Trey Sacksteder again coming back with the second pick for the Tennessee Titans. And guys, Tennessee, and I would not be...
Who did Tennessee pick first?
Malik Hooker.
Malik Hooker, and I know talking to Trey earlier in the week that he was really hopeful to get an offensive target. Trey, Bill Hrabak at TalkTV.us. We are at your 18th pick. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
How the Reds doing? Are they winning?
They're up 3-2 right now.
All right. So the Reds are winning, so it's a good Red day.
I went to the game where we lost 12-8, so last night. Awesome.
I've run these down. I know you and I have talked a little bit about where you would like to go with this 18th pick. I'll run them down quickly for you. Myles Garrett went to Cleveland. Solomon Thomas went to San Francisco. Marshon Lattimore went to Chicago. Jamal Adams went to Jacksonville. Malik Hooker to Tennessee. Gareon Conley to the New York Jets. Cam Robinson went to the San Diego Chargers. Leonard Fournette is now a Carolina Panther. Barnett is from Tennessee, is now with the Bengals. Kevin King, cornerback, Washington, went to Buffalo. Reuben Foster went to New Orleans. Mitch Trubisky, quarterback, went to Cleveland. Corey Davis, wide receiver, went to Arizona. Christian McCaffrey went to Philadelphia. Forrest Lamp, offensive guard, went to the Colts. Hassan Reddick went to the Ravens. And Zach Cunningham, the outside linebacker from Vandy, went to the Redskins right before your pick. And so what's your thinking with this 18th pick based on the ones right before you?
I think you're right. Corey Davis is off the board.
Yeah, Corey Davis, he went to Arizona with number 13.
Then I'm thinking, the Chiefs definitely where the Titans are one to go. They need somebody. Corey Davis is definitely the one I think they really want.
Right.
Pardon me. Sorry, 1 moment.
Okay.
But I think...
Are you, let you know, O.J. Howard's still available. I know we talked about that possibility. Mike Williams from Clemson's still there. I know you were thinking wide receiver.
Yeah.
Are those guys of interest to you, or are you looking in some...
I think Mike Williams is probably some... I know that John Ross has a lot of speed.
Right.
But I think Mike Williams' hands and his playability is something that the Titans need. They've went speed receiver before, and I feel that this time they need to get somebody who's a for sure guy they can get. So I would say Mike Williams out of Clemson.
Okay, so Mike Williams is now a Tennessee Titan. And Trey, thank you for joining us on the draft this year, and we look forward to you many years in the future here.
All righty, I appreciate it.
And that was Trey Sacksteder. So, guys, Mike Williams, Clemson.
Charge.
At the Cincinnati Reds game, no less. Those people go up and down on Mike Williams. Some people think he's going to be a top 10 pick. Some people say he's going to be the first receiver off the board. But then there's other people that are not really sold on him. I think he'll be a solid receiver. I don't know if he'll be a spectacular. I don't know that he'll be even as good as Sammy Watkins was.
That's kind of hard to do. He's a pretty talented guy.
Yeah. But, people have talked about that, So, but Tennessee wants to build around Mariota now, and I think that they want to get him some weapons. And
Yeah, Mike Williams, 6'4", 218. I know being here in Ohio, obviously, we saw what he did to the Buckeyes. He had a really good game against them last season. But if you have O.J. Howard still on the board, I don't know how you can pass, because he has just as much talent as Mike Williams. You can put him down as a tight end. You can split him out wide. If it were me, I would go with O.J. Howard. I think his upside is far superior than Mike Williams.
What about John Ross? John Ross still sitting there, too.
Yeah, John Ross was a solid college player, he wasn't great. I think everyone fell in love with the 4.25 or whatever he ran. Obviously, it's speed kills.
And he can stretch.
He can, but he's smaller.
Right.
Now Antonio Brown is a smaller guy, one of the best receivers in the NFL. But
He had to throw the Steeler in there.
well, he's the best receiver in the NFL. It's hard not to. But I think John Ross, I don't think his production matched up with his ability. And I think that's an issue for me.
Okay.
I think it was pure needs. You're just looking at the Titans' depth chart and roster right now. You still have a guy like Delaney Walker who is still in that tight end position. Who's a really, you play fantasy football, that's a steal every week.
Sure.
For Delaney Walker, he gets a lot of looks and a lot of throws.
Right.
But you're the number one right now. Number two wide receivers on the Titans is Rashard Mathews and Tajay Sharp. And I'm not even sure who Tajay Sharp is.
That's a solid point with the tight end for Tennessee.
Yep.
But if you want to, like I said earlier, the best friend to a quarterback is a good tight end. And
Right.
if you have two really good tight ends, that to me that's better than a number one receiver.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to move back to Steve Smith with Tampa Bay. They are looking for a running back. I guess Doug Martin, the Dougatron. There seems to be a parting of the ways there because they don't want to pay him. They are looking for a tight end with their number two need, and their third-tier needs are safety and edge rusher. Likely Delvin Cook, tight end O.J. Howard, wide receiver Buda Baker, and Obi Malafawanu from Connecticut.
Bless you.
The safety, who is an interesting guy. I think he is going to end up probably being a pretty good player in the NFL. He just needs a little more experience coming from UConn. So let's see what Steve Smith has to say about this. What are you guys thinking on this?
Mel Kiper has, in his latest mock draft, has wide receiver out of Washington going to Tampa Bay.
John Ross.
And you pair him on so you have Mike Evans, and then you put a guy like John Ross to stretch the field. That's an interesting combination there, but I think if I go the tight end there.
Okay, Steve Smith, Bill Hrabak, TalkTV.us. We're back with your 19th pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Steve?
Hey, Bill?
Yes.
Long time no talk.
How you doing?
Doing good. Listen, I caught your live broadcast. I missed the 17th and the 18th pick. So if you can give me those.
17th is Zach Cunningham, the outside linebacker from Vandy.
Wow.
18 is Mike Williams, the wide receiver from Clemson. And that puts you in a position, based on what I'm reading about Tampa Bay, you got a lot left in the candy store there for the Bucs to pick from.
Absolutely. Well, there's only one way to go. Let's reunite Jameis Winston with Dalvin Cook.
Okay, and so you're going to fill that running back need. What is the problem in Tampa Bay with the Dougatron as far as, do they just not want to pay him, or is there other issues that people don't hear about as far as, where they're going to go with him?
No, they gave him the chance. I think he ran his legs out,
Okay.
even though he's really young.
Okay.
I really think they overworked him that 1 year, and then he became a little more fragile. Now he's going to be a complimentary back.
Okay. So they want to look for some fresh legs to run those legs off?
Yeah, absolutely. And then they're going to have a lot of open field in the middle that Cook can receive very well.
Now, would you have considered, O.J. Howard's still sitting there. I didn't think he'd be, dropped this low. Would that have been a consideration for you guys?
Yeah, it would have been a consideration, but there's other needs that they have. Obviously, we want to. I'm sorry, there's an echo that's bothering me.
Okay.
But what I'd like to do is complement Hargrave with another corner, maybe get a safety. But Dalvin Cook's the best player available.
Okay.
I think that's the guy to go.
Very good. Well, we'll be back with you, Steve, in a little bit, a few picks from now for the Dolphins, and we'll see where you want to go with the Finns at that point.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
Yep. So, guys, Dalvin Cook, best player available. They want a running back. Probably a logical pick there.
Yeah, I don't see anything. That's who I would have picked if I was in that position.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Doug Martin is just a huge question mark at this point. They sat him for a good 5-6 games last year, and he was healthy. So
yeah, I think what I read is there's some money issues about he wants to be paid
like a Peyton Hill situation almost.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and after the year he had, he thinks he's Zeke, I guess, in some ways. And so there's some feuding going on.
He needs to be jumping in some pots.
Yes.
I think they do need a running back, but I think when there needs the defensive lineman, if we're going best available, Jonathan Allen is still on the board.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to pass up the number, which most people have in the top 5 overall prospects,
Right.
and I think that's tough to pass them up. To me, I think I would have gone with Jonathan Allen. I completely understand why you go with the running back in that situation.
Sure.
But if you're going true best available, Jonathan Allen's the guy.
Okay.
And it fills a need.
And it fills a need. And so we will see, and then you've got O.J. Howard mysteriously still hovering around out there. Somebody's going to get a nice tight end here, guys. Yeah, because I think Greg has got him eyed up. So Dave Parrish is up next. He is picking for the Broncos. The Broncos, I guess quarterback is off the table. That Trevor Siemian, they're going to look at Paxton Lynch, who I thought looked good in the limited games he played. I think they didn't want to rush him in. And, God bless John Elway for doing that. He understood that we don't want to feed this rookie to the Lions. Let him develop. He's got a big arm.
Well, if he played against the Lions, it wouldn't be too bad.
Well, that's true. That's true. But, he was a guy that I thought showed the type of things you wanted to see out of a rookie quarterback, but he just wasn't ready to go.
Yeah, and I think with the Broncos, like you said, and that's the thing with Paxton Lynch. No one saw him coming in right away and stepping in.
Right.
He was a guy that's going to need some time.
Right.
He needed to ease into the system. So what do you give a quarterback that needs to ease in? Your offensive line struggled. You go with an offensive lineman. And the top 2 offensive tackles are still available.
Yep.
Ryan Ramczyk out of Wisconsin
Garrett.
and Garrett Bowles out of Utah. And I guess at that point it kind of depends on who you want. And our GM, Dave Parrish, is an offensive line coach. I kind of have an idea of where DPU is going to go with this, but we'll see. Dave Parrish is on the phone. Now, Dave, we were just kind of talking how the Broncos kind of at top of their needs as an offensive lineman, you being a offensive line guru over the years, and the top 2 offensive tackles in the prospects in the draft are still available. Is that somewhere you're leaning, or there are other, like O.J. Howard is also available still?
In real life, I don't think O.J. Howard will be available.
Yeah, we've said that. We keep on saying that every round.
So, but no, the Broncos, they are in need of a left tackle on their offensive line because they pieced together an offensive line last year that didn't play very well, actually.
Right.
It comes down between Garrett Bowles and Ramczyk out of Wisconsin, and gosh, it's like a flip of a coin here with these 2 guys. But I think we're going to go with the Ramczyk out of Wisconsin only because he has been battle tested through his college career. He's played against probably 3 number 1 or first round picks.
Right.
Last year.
Right. Well, and I think the thing with Ramczyk is that Wisconsin linemen, you look at Joe Thomas, the type of coaching has adapted well for Wisconsin linemen to go into the NFL. So it makes it a safe pick where Bowles might have more athletic ability, but I think Ramczyk.
Bowles just has 1 year under his belt, if I'm understanding that. And
right.
He's 25 years old, and
Yeah.
You know, he'll be 30 years old by the time he's done with his rookie contract.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It just makes sense right now for the Broncos. I mean, everything I read, the daggone Broncos, man, they would draft somebody from every position if they had the opportunity right now.
Sure. Well, I think they do need to keep the quarterback upright, and we talked about Paxton Lynch. We think John Elway's done a nice job protecting him, bringing him along slowly, and developing him into the quarterback of the future.
Right. Well, John Elway, he put a stop to the Tony Romo's stuff that was going around there, and, you know, he said we're satisfied with Paxton Lynch and
Trevor Siemian.
And Trevor Siemian, yeah.
Yeah, and I like Siemian. I think Siemian, he's going to get a home somewhere, even if it isn't in Denver long term. But I think he's a good game manager. He manages the ball pretty well, and that's what
he's one of the Northwestern grads that we spoke about earlier.
Yep. Okay, Dave. Well, we'll be joining you here a little bit later, and we will get you for your last pick of the day. Okay?
Looking forward to it.
Okay, and that was Dave Parrish.
Thanks, DP.
You know, and they talk about this Bowles kid, reading up on him. One of the issues is the character concerns.
Yeah.
Coming out of high school, he was in trouble with the law. He was in and out of juvie, his high school. Didn't go to college. Worked regular old job for a few years. Had to go to JUCO until he finally turned his life around. So hopefully that continues. We want to see a guy succeed, but there are obviously some character concerns there. And I just think Ramsick is more battle tested in the Big Ten with the guys he's had to go up against the last few years compared to the Pac-12s. The defensive ends, they haven't really seen much production out of those guys.
Right.
And that really struck a chord with me, what DP said about by the time his rookie contract's over, he'll be almost 30, or will be 30.
Yeah.
And that's a red flag in my book, because by the time you get to 30,
That's towards the end of the year.
generally, you're on the downswing of your professional career.
Yeah, I think Bowles will have some value, and I think obviously there's the character issues, and I think there's several teams down in the next couple picks that will be looking at Bowles because they need offensive tackles and that, and so we'll see what happens. Maybe he slides through the whole first round. I mean, who knows? But there are some teams that need offensive linemen coming up here. Okay, we have.
If I'm a betting man, I don't know. I feel like the Lions might pick O.J. Howard, but it's not really on one of their needs. But boy,
Well, it's got third. You know, it's not their high need, but I think
for a guy like O.J. Howard, though, just falling this far.
when Stafford, yeah, I agree. He's probably a top 10, 15 pick. He's still sitting there. You've got Matt Stafford, who isn't getting younger.
Right.
You've lost
Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson. You need to replace receiver. You need to give him targets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that O.J. Howard, if he's there. I know there's a lot of talk about them going with an edge rusher. Taco Charlton out of Michigan. Charles Harris from Missouri. And one that I saw in a mock draft is Derek Rivers out of Youngstown State. I don't know much about him.
He's top 10 on Gil Brandt's. That's the only thing I know.
Yeah, so I mean, he must have a little bit of ability. And Youngstown State a lot of times gets those transfer kids from universities that they wash out for one reason or another. So, you know, with Bo Pelini
I
there.
was going to say, yeah, and they've got a high caliber coach there.
Yeah, Bo might have been able to influence him to, you know, come to Youngstown State.
I wouldn't be surprised seeing a couple more Youngstown State people throughout the next few years.
Yeah.
With Bo Pelini being there.
In the near future. Another one that's still there is T.J. Watt from Wisconsin, and he's been highly rated. Some people say that he will be a very productive player, but I guess we will see what happens. And we will get L.C. Gagin is the GM for the Lions, and we'll see where L.C. wants to go with this. So, yeah, guys, it's still a mystery. O.J. Howard is...
Hello.
LC, this is Bill Hrabak with TalkTV.us and the 2017 mock draft. I'm joined by Greg Henning and Mark Scovanner. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Bill. How are you?
We are doing just fine. I'm sure Greg wants to say something to you there.
El Swizzle, my man.
Hey, Greg.
The Lions are sitting here. We see that they're looking for an edge rusher, corner, tight end. I don't know if you've been following anything here on it, but you've got O.J. Howard still sitting there. What's your thinking process here where you see the Lions going?
I think at this point, I think I'd be angry if they took any offensive player.
Okay.
They have so many needs defensively.
Right.
And they desperately need someone that can get to the quarterback.
Okay. Well, I'll run down the guys who've went. He's got. So you know who's gone. So what's your thinking as far as? I mean, you've got Charles Harris is still sitting there. Tim Williams from Alabama. I mean, you have some guys that can get after it. What are you thinking?
Well, with who's there and how the board fell, and pretty much from what I've gathered from how the Lions seem to be taking this, with my pick, I'm taking Taco Charlton.
Ooh, and then that's not a surprise, by the way. Would you?
No.
With your Michigan roots there. Now, my concern with Charlton is, of course, I am somewhat critical of the Michigan defense. Do you think he has shown the consistency that warrants being a first-round draft choice?
I think you could argue there's times where it's not there.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, I think he is a type of player that would help the Lions.
Okay.
They need someone opposite of Ziggy Ansah to get to the quarterback.
Right.
And they just don't have that right now.
Okay.
And I'd really love for Hassan Reddick to get down to them, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
Yeah. I think if Reddick falls to the Lions, I think they'll be really happy in that situation.
That's a slam dunk if he falls to the Lions.
Right. Greg, you anything there for him?
No, you said I'm not too surprised. I know Taco Charlton is projected to be a first-round pick. I know the Lions obviously need help. He's being a local guy just down the road, University of Michigan, although he is from the Columbus, Ohio area. Just want to throw that out there. So I'm not surprised. Now, if Matt Millen was still around, I think O.J. Howard would be the pick. But thankfully, L.C. Gagin is in charge of the Detroit Lions these days.
Well, they'd pick a wide receiver if it was Millen.
It wouldn't. You have to slim down.
No wide receivers or tight ends, please.
Yeah, I was going to say they would take a wide receiver that had some long rap sheet of doing something.
Now don't get me wrong. If Corey Davis somehow slips to them, I think they'll give that a good hard thought.
Yeah, I just wondered with Stafford at this point of his career if they wouldn't want to try to give him another weapon to maybe bolster the offense. But you're right, the defense does need help, and really that division is kind of in flux with everything going on, and with Aaron Rodgers there, you need to get some pressure on him. So I guess that makes sense where you went.
Exactly. Especially when you see Aaron Rodgers twice a year, you have to get after him. You can't allow him to sit back there and pick the Lions defense apart,
right? Like
he did twice last year.
Very good. So, LC, thanks for participating in the draft again, and we look forward
to
having you back next year to pick for the Lions again. And that's LC Gagin, the GM for the Detroit Lions. And we're going to move back to Steve Smith, who will be picking for the Dolphins, guys. Looking at the chart here, it says likely picks were Forrest Lamp, gone. Hassan Reddick, gone. Gareon Conley, gone. Taco Charlton, gone. So the Dolphins, however, I wonder, even though they're looking for offensive line and defense, if O.J. Howard's sitting there.
And I was just looking up, doing a little research on the Finns, and they just traded for a number one tight end. Julius Thomas from Jacksonville.
That's true.
So they have Anthony Fasano out of Tennessee and Julius Thomas right now. So they're not in the market for that. I don't see Miami looking at a tight end at all.
So we're probably going to look at maybe offensive line, I would think, to keep.
I think they may go with. I'm surprised this guy's still available. Jared Davis out of Florida. high production guy, good speed. It wouldn't surprise me because they do need some help at linebacker, both inside and outside, and I think he can play the outside on the weak side, or he can play in the middle.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see.
Hello?
Steve Smith, this is Bill Hrabak again with the mock draft, and you are up with the Dolphins at the 22nd pick. And to update you since you last picked, we had...
I got it.
Oh, you got him? Okay, so where are you thinking here with the Dolphins?
Well, first I want to thank Zach for taking my pick. The Colts now seem to have a pattern going.
Yes.
They got Jonathan Hankins
Right.
when I was on with you a couple weeks ago.
Right.
They got him in real life, and now Zach just took Forrest Lamp, the guard that I wanted.
Right.
But the best player at this point that fits what the Dolphins need on defense, I think, is Jarrad Davis out of Florida, linebacker.
And Greg Henning was just saying that he was probably a likely guy for you to look at. And what do you like about Davis?
Oh, there's too much. He can play every down. He's got instincts and competitiveness and coverage ability even. So he's got a great motor.
Okay. Well, it looks like a good day for you, for all your teams. And we appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday afternoon to be with us in the third annual mock draft.
Always a pleasure, Bill.
Okay. And that was Steve Smith, who picked for the Eagles, Bucks, and the Finns. Okay.
Some of these edge rushers that I'm seeing on Gilbrandt's top position list are still up on the board.
Yeah.
Kid Williams out of Alabama,
Right.
McKinley out of UCLA, the Harris kid out of Missouri. All these kids are still in the top 10 edge rushers, and that's a lot of needs for a lot of teams.
Yeah,
So
it'll be interesting. I mean, we're coming down to that point where these guys are going to be, there's some good picks left for the teams at the bottom right now. And number 23 is Greg Henning, and he's going to be picking for the Giants. Needs, tight end, offensive tackle, running back.
do you know if I can get some memorabilia from Manning?
I'll hook up with the equipment manager. I'll be able to get you that.
It will be real though. That's my question.
Oh, it'll be real. I just don't know how game used it'll be. Yeah. Eli Manning's a little hot water for that right now.
What a weird scandal.
I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, so
He was contributing to a couple $1,000 deals or something. So he's $1 million quarterback, and he only made a couple $1,000 off. Yeah. Why would you?
it'll be
involve yourself?
I'm interested to see what all the facts are, because the guy from the company said, well, when Eli Manning gives you something, you expect it to be authentic, which absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Then Eli Manning, if he tells the equipment manager, hey, I need some stuff, he maybe assumes that it's game use. And then I heard on the radio, some of the players like, well, you know whether you wore that uniform or not. If it's washed, how do you know? I don't know.
You can't make sense of this because it's one of the weirdest scandals I've ever heard.
You can't make sense of it because it doesn't make sense.
Yes, there you go.
Very true. Yeah. Well, if it makes news, they'll put it on there. So.
Yeah, no, going with their needs, they do. I think they need an inside linebacker because they've had some issues that they haven't gotten production. So I was hoping Jarrad Davis wouldn't be taken by Miami. So you stay at middle linebacker. You have Raekwon McMillan still available. I think that's kind of high for him.
Yep.
But they did get some production out of Eli Apple. Do they stay with Ohio State? So that's one possibility.
What about the kid out of UCLA?
Yeah, I think if they went with an edge rusher, I think they go with more of a defensive end as opposed to the hybrid position.
Gotcha.
That's my thinking on that. They haven't had much production on the tight end position, so obviously O.J. Howard's still available.
I was looking at some mock drafts, and 2 of the 5 picks I looked at, they had 3 of the 5 picks, were tight ends. So
yeah,
Juku of
because
Miami.
Miami, yeah.
like one of our previous callers, previous GM said a moment ago, O.J. Howard's not going to be there in real life. I don't see O.J. Howard being there for the Giants. If he's there, I think they take him.
Right.
I just don't see him falling to the 20th pick or 23rd pick. My goodness, we're in the mid-20s now.
I think if he gets past the top 10, which there's a chance that'll happen.
I think he'll drop. I think he'll drop like Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I think what will happen is you'll see some teams, maybe like the Giants, who will try to maneuver up a couple picks to make sure they can secure him. At 17 or 19, and
or a team will snag him out of just pure offensive talent.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would. I mean, if he gets that far,
need, yeah.
Right. And you never know. Now, here we are sitting in Jeffersonville doing our mock draft, but there are also kids that are fished in the NFL draft all the time. Mitch Trubisky could be one of those. Patrick Mahomes, O.J. Howard. Yeah, I mean, you just never know what else might be out there that maybe a kid like that does drop. We've seen it happen with quarterbacks quite often. They've skidded all the way down into the low 20s and 30s. So you never know. That stuff can happen, and maybe the Giants would be in position to get O.J. Howard.
Yeah, I think to get him, they would have to move up. I really think they do.
Right.
Eventually, they're going to have to try to find a quarterback.
Right.
Because right now they have Geno Smith as one of their backups, and
Nice.
I just don't see that happening.
Nice. Future of the franchise.
Yeah, so they're going to have to, but I think they'll take maybe Mahomes in the second round if he's there. So it depends. They're not going to take anybody a quarterback in the first round.
Right.
I think to me, with the guys that are available, if it comes down to it, they take O.J. Howard. I'm not going to take O.J. Howard because I don't think he's going to be there.
Sure.
I think in real life he's there, they take him.
Right.
It's
no-brainer.
pretty obvious there.
Right.
Basically, Greg's now his mindset is he wants Howard to fall away to the Steelers. So
Yeah.
he can pick him with the Steelers pick.
If he falls to the Steelers are going to take him. He's not going to be there in the 30th pick.
Yeah.
So you're not picking him because it's fake. This whole show is fake. It's not unreal.
Yeah, we're not getting paid.
We're just having fun out here.
We're not getting paid by the NFL to do this, by the way. But
Well, apparently you guys must not have received your contract then. I think the most likely,
because if we were, they'd have 2 empty rooms tomorrow morning.
Yes. I think the most likely pick with the guys that are, I think Garrett Bowles is an option because they do need some offensive line help.
That is a popular theory for them.
Yeah, but all that being said, I'm in charge of the New York Giants.
Sure.
I'm going with the second best available player from the same school as the first best available player.
Okay.
I'm going with O.J. Howard.
There you go.
Look
at you.
He just fished us around on that
You
one.
can't.
It's Kevin Costner me.
You can't pass him up. O.J. Howard's there. It's in all honesty, it's really tough not to take Jonathan Allen. I mean, you have a top 5 prospect at number 23, even if that's not necessarily your number 1 need. Although you have in this draft, you have some running backs going into your division. You already have Zeke Elliott.
And you've got an abundance of what Gil Brandt was saying, which makes this draft interesting, is there's a high priority on corners. And he said a lot of corners can filter into that first round, which changes the whole draft order. And does a guy like Jonathan Allen, O.J. Howard truly drop because of that? And as we just said, in reality, if we could make trades, and if they are truly looking at a tight end and O.J. Howard is sitting at 17, 18 in that, do they make a move to try to get up and get him? So that they may end up getting O.J. Howard. It just might be a little bit higher than what it is right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in every draft, there's a run on one position.
Yes.
And this is going to be the corner. It's going to be in the secondary.
Right. Because
just the talent level that they have from top to bottom is it's insane. So do you wait and get maybe your third, fourth, fifth option, or do you make that move and say, listen, I'm not going to get passed up. I need to get somebody that's high on my list and make that move.
Sure. And Eli Manning's not getting any younger, so you want to try to get a weapon for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, well, let's move on to Cody Mathews of the Oakland Raiders. 3-year Letterman here for us.
Don't you mean Las Vegas Raiders?
The Las Vegas Raiders, yes.
Soon to be.
Yes, the soon to be. The Raiders are not that far away, guys. They don't have them taking a running back, but I still think somehow, some way, there could be a running back that could work their way into this pick. Unless Adrian Peterson.
Hello.
Cody Mathews, how you doing tonight?
Hey, what's going on?
Well, we are here doing the 3rd annual mock draft. I've got Greg Henning and Mark Scovanner here.
That's bad company.
You know, it's two of your favorite people here. I can just feel the love through the phone.
That had to be Mark Scovanner.
Are you scheduling our trip to Vegas in 2 years there, Mathews?
Oh, I've got it all lined up.
Yeah.
I figure you'll cover the cost, so.
Okay, so the Oakland Raiders, they had a great year. Derek Carr gets hurt. Unfortunately, it ends not the way they wanted it, but they're obviously knocking on the door of supplanting probably the Broncos as the dominant team in that division.
That's a weird door.
Kansas City's getting older. San Diego's not real, well, L.A., whatever you want to call them, is not really relevant right now. And so the Raiders are on that cusp. We've got them listed here as running back, corner, and outside backer or edge rusher as their first priorities. Offensive tackle, second priority, and inside linebacker, third priority. Why don't you tell us where your thinking is with the Raiders?
Well, running backs, with the possible departure of Latavius Murray,
Right.
is definitely need. But also, middle linebacker, inside linebacker seems to be an overlooked need. Now, the open to the beat writers out in Oakland, they're very well aware of that.
Right.
So, running back, inside linebacker, certainly. They could use another corner, but they signed Sean Smith last year, so a few needs on the defensive side of the ball, and that's where I see them going.
Okay.
And, a lot of these guys have the Raiders taking Raekwon McMillan,
Wow.
number 24, for Ohio State.
Okay, so
And that's
Raekwon.
the pick I could see them going with.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think the running back. Now, what do you think is Adrian Peterson? Is he still in play with the Raiders?
Well, it just depends on where we go with Marshon Lynch.
Well, I forgot about Lynch too.
Right now we're kind of at a standstill with Lynch. He basically, Seattle's going to be paying him $9 million. The Raiders want to pay him a third of that. Lynch is looking for no less than half.
Right.
So it's hard to tell right now until we figure out what goes on with Marshon Lynch. But it seems like the market for Adrian Peterson is even stagnant right now. So I think it's going to take a little while to develop, certainly after the draft.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. I have them as their two needs: middle linebacker, defensive tackle. Like you said, the running back is still up in the air with Lynch and Adrian Peterson. So you don't know where that's going to go. Jonathan Allen is still on the board, defensive tackle out of Alabama. Did he cross your mind, or do you think they can get a value pick later in the draft at that position?
Well, I certainly think he's an option, especially with the Raiders releasing Dan Johnson the other day. So, it certainly could be preparation to draft a defensive tackle.
Right.
But Reddy's also been known to get interior linemen on both sides of the ball later in the draft. Gabe Jackson, offensive guard, he gets him in the third round out of Mississippi State. Certainly Reggie could go that way in the first round, but I really think inside linebacker, which has been a need ever since Nick Roach suffered a concussion that pretty much ended his career. I think the Raiders really need an inside linebacker, somebody to kind of be the quarterback of that defense. So it certainly could go that way with Allen, but I could see them going, Raekwon McMillan or somebody of that caliber at 24 if they're available.
Do you think, with the Raiders' penchants to pick up sometimes players that are viewed as problem children, do you think that Garrett Bowles maybe becomes a possibility, or Mixon or Joe Mixon become possibilities for the Raiders?
I really don't think so. I think that used to be kind of the Raider way, so to speak, especially under Al Davis. But, Al's son, Mark, for one, really has a desire to not bring anybody in, especially domestic violence, but that has any character issues. And Reggie is a very high character general manager as well. So that kind of used to be the Raider way.
Right.
But with Al Davis's passing and Reggie kind of taking the helm, character is very high on Reggie's list. And you see with a pick like Rolando McClain a couple of years ago, that the Raiders don't have a lot of success with him, as talented as he was, limited in some ways in his ability to play a middle linebacker, but mostly character issues that have still plagued him. So I think Reggie is going to avoid character issues. It's very high on his list, according to all beat writers that come out of the area, and just what you see on the way he drafts and the way he talks.
Good. Okay, well, that's a change for the Raiders, obviously for the better. So Raekwon McMillan is now an Oakland Raider. Mark, you have anything to add there?
No, it's a great pick outside of Jonathan Allen. These are the two guys I was looking at. Raekwon's the biggest inside linebacker on the left on the list, 6'3", 240, so that's perfect pick in my eyes.
And there is a relationship with the Raiders picking Ohio State defensive players. They've had good success with that, so they may continue to go back to that well.
Yeah, and let me just add that this is one of the drafts where I think I could be very surprised with the way the Raiders go. For one, they're picking in the 20s, which hasn't happened in a long time.
Right.
Other than any way that they've lost draft picks or kind of ended up in a bad end of a deal where they traded away a draft pick. So this could surprise me this year. I could certainly see him going with somebody like Allen. For right now, I'm still going to stick with middle linebacker because it's been such a glaring weakness over the last several seasons.
Right. Okay, well, Cody, thanks for joining us again on the mock draft, and we appreciate you picking for the Raiders, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, and that was Cody Mathews, the GM for the Raiders. Guys, it's us again.
I like how you were making comments. It was like, why didn't you pick a character problem guy? You were like, that's what the Raiders pick character problems.
That's what the Raiders do. It's the Raiders. It's their lineage.
It was also the Bengals for a handful of years.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I think you had to have an arrest record in order to get drafted by the Bengals for a while.
Pac-Man would attest to that.
Oh, and he's our veteran leadership now in the defense.
Yeah, there you go.
And Greg's face says it all.
Exciting thought there. Yeah, the Raiders have changed their image.
Yeah, it's a whole new theme. Like you said, he's not used to picking in the 20s now, and it's a whole new ball game. When Al Davis died and they got Carr, is the whole thing changed.
I think the thing that happens with Joe Mixon, everybody's going to be scared off in the first round, but I think there's going to be a race in round 2 to bring him in. What Mixon did, when you have recurring drug problems, tends to be more of a problem, a la Josh Gordon, than it does with the domestic violence thing. Is kind of usually a tongue-in-cheek hit-or-miss type of thing.
Wow.
So
what a phrase.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Is as far as whether it...
Pun not intended.
Yeah. Lord.
But I think that what I've heard them saying is, through the history of the NFL, with players that have had those kind of backgrounds, that a lot of times when they draft them, that is the one incident that they have, and they've not.
There's nothing else.
There's not a lot of reoccurrence of it. So that's why I don't know that Mixon wouldn't, if he's convinced.
He's a reoccurring problem, isn't he? Doesn't he have more than one episode of?
Well, this is what Gil Brandt was talking to Bill Polian and those guys were talking about him. And through the interview process, they felt that he had shown a lot of maturity, and at least what he says. And of course, that doesn't mean that's going to be true, but they felt that they saw a solid recovery going on with him. And they were kind of saying that people will be shy in the first round because if he blows up on you, it's going to be a PR nightmare.
Well, look at Tunsil. Tunsil was top 5, right? And then one little Instagram video, and he's a second rounder.
But then he ends up being a great offensive lineman for the Dolphins. So I think what happens is people will second round start flocking to him, because he has talent. And I mean, it would be interesting to see where he would actually rank if he didn't have that baggage.
Or like the Bengals pick, Vontaze Burfict. He had issues at Arizona State, and he was undrafted. And so even if Mixon maybe doesn't get drafted just because of those issues, he could probably find his way onto a team and play really well.
Very true. Guys, we're up. We've got the Texans.
Tony Romo.
There is a lot of yes.
Out of CBS.
If they could,
They couldn't match what CBS can pay.
no, they couldn't. I saw one mock draft. All 6 guys had him taking Davis Webb out of Cal, but I don't think in any of those drafts, as I recall, you didn't see Deshaun Watson still there. You didn't see Patrick Mahomes there. My thinking on it is, if they do decide to go quarterback there, Bill O'Brien has a reputation of being a quarterback guru kind of coach.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes, being from Texas Tech, and that
What's up, Mahomes?
I seem to think that might be where they would go with that.
Yeah, my thinking would be the offensive line to protect them. Because Houston, they've had that issue before where they didn't have an offensive line to protect them. I think of the available, all of the quarterbacks are available except one.
Right.
I think they could go with Mahomes, but I think if they want Mahomes or Webb, if they think those guys are still, they can get them in the second round. They could trade up to get them.
I agree. For Mahomes, Mahomes may be one of those guys that could be gone in the first, but I agree with you on Webb. If they're really solidly in Webb's corner, I agree. Second, maybe even third round, they could probably get him.
I think if it shakes out this way, I think they go with the way our draft is gone. I think they'll go with Deshaun Watson out of Clemson. I think if Watson is gone, if Kaiser's gone, then I think they take Mahomes at this point in the draft, in the late first round. If he's gone, then they'll maybe trade back or trade up to get Webb in the second, third round. But I think the way our draft has shaken out, I don't know about you, Mark, but I think they would go with Deshaun Watson in this case.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, I'm looking at depth charts and just looking at these, and their option, they have to go quarterback.
They're not very deep.
Yeah,
Their depth chart is shallow.
Yeah, the depth chart is very shallow. There are 2 options at quarterback as of today on Texans roster are Tom Savage, or Savage, depending on who you're talking to.
Savage.
And the 87-year-old Brandon Weeden.
He's still playing?
Well, he's on the roster. Yes, he's on the roster. So
I thought he was hermetically sealed by this point.
I'm looking at any of the quarterbacks that are left on this board, and any of them. And for my money, I would pick, especially if the offensive line, if they're in need of offensive linemen, you kind of got to scramble a little bit.
Right.
And I think your best option for movement and quarterback is Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
Out of Clemson.
And I would 2 out of 3 go with him. I would think they would take Patrick Mahomes there, but that just because they've had.
If Watson's available, you think they?
Yeah, I think they like him. Well, and here's the thing: it's kind of like the Browns and Trubisky, and there are some rules in the NFL.
Texas, he's a big homer guy.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: there's some rules in the NFL which I did not know about until this year as far as trying out players. And if a player lives in your state or goes to college in your state, you can bring him in and try him out, give him tryouts as many times as you want. If you're bringing him from outside state lines, they can bring him in, they can do a psychological profile, they can give him a test. They cannot do any physical aspects on that. And I did not know that. So my thinking is they've seen a lot of Mahomes because he is there at Texas Tech, and that would lead me to believe maybe they feel more comfortable with him. But we're going to go with Deshaun Watson there. Okay. And he is the new quarterback for the. Now, do you think Watson? The idea is for him to play right away. I mean, obviously, don't have a lot of talent.
We just read off the
depth chart.
I mean, you could wait till Tom Savage gets killed and then have him, which could be 2-3 snaps into the first preseason.
Or do they try? And there's going to be some cuts here coming up. Or do they try to find?
Grab a guy,
Josh McCown.
Yeah, we'll grab a serviceable guy real quick and have him start for the first half of the season.
I think
that's a valid option.
I think they have a serviceable guy for a little bit. I really think Tom Savage isn't terrible.
They like Savage.
They
really do.
I don't think he's a quarterback for the future, but I think he's that bridge guy.
He's a bridge guy.
I really think so because he has some talent, not enough to be very successful, but I think Tom Savage is the guy.
I think we have a legend coming to. Oh, okay.
Infamous. I thought we had Uncle Lee coming in here to visit us.
Right. Well, I don't know. Lee Hendee made his appearance here after he flew in from Chicago after making the pick.
We got Lee Hendee sighting.
Yeah.
It's now officially a studio audience.
Yes, we have a studio audience.
We got an audience now. All right.
Oh, that was a good one.
Very good, Mark. I like that.
Lee Hendee staring at me.
Yes.
The legends.
Guys,
let's get together now.
we're getting back to Dave Parrish one more time here today.
I will be surprised. Defensive tackle is a need of theirs. If he doesn't take Jonathan Allen, it will shock me. But we've said Dave Parrish is an offensive line guy. The kid out of Utah is still available. I think it's between those two.
Dave, Bill Hrabak, mock draft, 26 pick, Seattle Seahawks. What are you thinking there?
The Seahawks are in limbo. Richard Sherman is going to really put a wrench into it. He don't sign as a free agent or come back.
He can't go anywhere unless the Seahawks decide to trade him. And I have read that they're trying to package something with Marshawn Lynch going to the Raiders. They'll negotiate what they owe him if they'll take Richard Sherman too. So it sounds like they are trying to shop him around.
Right. So, the Seahawks signed Eddie Lacy this week too. So, this is tough here. Their needs. I don't know what their needs are. A lot of the
O-line, D-line,
cornerback, offensive line, and wide receiver.
Well, I think it becomes corner if Sherman is gone.
Exactly.
I think if otherwise you have a choice between an offensive line position, defensive line position. We've still got as we get
Garrett Bowles and John.
I was just looking online here, and there's about 4 mock drafts that have Garrett Bowles. Has the Seahawks taken Bowles at this pick right here?
Yeah, and Pete has a way with guys like that. He may be able to get them turned around.
So I think the Seahawks will go with Garrett Bowles at this pick right here.
Yeah, and I have seen the similar things that a lot of the stuff in the Seattle papers they have talked about him and have had him in. So stands to reason there might be some truth to that. So we will put Garrett Bowles down as the Seahawks pick. And Dave, as always, is a pleasure. How's your football team doing out there? You guys win?
We took one on the chin yesterday, actually. We just took over first place the week before, and then yesterday we stubbed our toe a little bit, and we're at 4-1 right now.
Okay. Well.
Or 4-2, I'm sorry, 4-2 right now.
Okay.
But, we're still clearly in the playoff picture, so.
Well, hopefully you get a ring for that finger there, right?
Yeah, it's a possibility, very good possibility.
Okay. Well, Dave, we thank you again for being in the 3rd annual draft, and we look forward to having you back next year.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Yep. And that's Dave Parrish.
Now, I think I have to say that it makes Coach Dave Parrish's heart happy. He was able to choose 2 offensive linemen in his 3 picks.
I think every year he's picked offensive linemen.
I think regardless of team and regardless of how talented the offensive line pool is, he's picking offensive linemen.
He's going to pick offensive linemen. So, I agree.
He could tease you and say, they're looking at cornerback, running back, but...
There's an offensive tackle available. Oh, there's still somebody available to take him.
Well, Scott Wilcox is going to come back. He's had a long wait. He was picking for the 49ers. He's now back for the Chiefs. Inside linebacker, a backup quarterback. I've seen Deshaun Kaiser's name linked to the Chiefs because...
You want to pick a backup quarterback in the 1st round?
Well, he may not be a backup for a long time, though. They're saying that, Smith could be a year or 2, and then they're going to start looking at that. Whether they really do or not, I don't know.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, how you doing, Scott?
Great.
Well, the Chiefs are up. We've had a really strange draft, so to speak.
I've been thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's, without trades, it's really hard to say, would people bounce up to take certain people if they're available. But, of course, in our format,
Right.
you take what you think you need. And so you're up with Kansas City. The Chiefs, of course, looking at a couple charts, they're looking at some outside linebackers, corners. Quarterback has come up. Actually, we just talked about Deshaun Kaiser here a few minutes ago.
Right.
So where are the Chiefs at with this pick?
Well, I can tell you that if Deshaun Watson had fallen that far, I think the Chiefs probably would have made a move to maybe trade up to grab him.
Okay.
But with Mahomes still available, that's
Right.
putting him in kind of a quandary because there is a lot of pressure here locally for the Chiefs to draft a quarterback and develop someone.
Right.
But then you still also have the local kid, the Harris kid out of Missouri, the defensive end, who has fallen quite a bit in this draft.
Right.
And I could see them going either way with either one of those two, or possibly even Dory Jackson's still available,
Yep.
the cornerback out of USC.
Sure is.
But the cornerback depth is supposed to be so great this draft. They may hold off on that position until second or third round to pick up another corner. So in my mind, it will come down to Harris or Mahomes in this position. And I'm leaning towards thinking they would go with Charles Harris,
Okay.
the defensive end out of Missouri. They are definitely going to need another pass edge, an edge rusher.
Right.
And this is a kid that could, develop for a year or so. And I think that would be the route that they would go with this.
Yeah, and I think the quarterback situation, it's legit that they need to develop the backup, but it seems if the draft played out this way, that if Kansas City saw that there was still these quarterbacks remaining, they could always trade up in the second round and get Mahomes or Webb or whoever, Kaiser, whoever might be there. So, yeah, I think they'd be in a great situation if it played out this way.
Yeah, and they're very fortunate, too. They've got 10 picks in this year's draft. They got 2/3, I believe 2/4, and 2/6. So they've got some tips to do some bargaining with if they want to.
Sure. Very true. Well, Scott, it's been a pleasure having you on the draft again. I hope to do it for many more years, and thank you for participating today.
All right, guys, take care.
And that was Scott Wilcox in Kansas City, picking for the Chiefs. And Charles Harris, guys?
It's right up your alley, a hometown kid.
Yeah, well, and I think there's something to be said about that a lot of times. I think you read, when, who was the tight end the Colts they drafted because he had played?
Colby Fleener.
They drafted him because he had played with Luck to give him a familiar receiver net. And I think there's something, from a psychological standpoint, I think that NFL teams understand that more now, that they're going to take a chance on bringing some teammates in, especially if they're stabilizing forces for each other. Sure. So I think that, being close to home, I think that can, make a kid more comfortable, and it can work the other way, especially if it's on the coast or in Texas.
Yeah, I like the pick, too, because I just don't see, I wouldn't pick when you pick a quarterback in the first round, you expect him to play, or at least I would assume fan bases would expect him to play.
Well, they picked Paxton Lynch in Denver with the idea that he needed some time, and I think the worry is that those guys are going to disappear. And if you think this kid can be a player, you got to get him while he's there. I really believe the Browns would have taken Paxton Lynch had he fallen into the second round.
That would be smart for the Browns to do that, and I don't think they.
Well, I don't think
it would make smart draft moves, though.
Well, I don't think that would have been I don't think it would have been I don't think it would have been a good move, although I think Lynch has potential. I don't think it would have been a good move from the standpoint that Cleveland can't afford to sit him.
He would have had to come in and
Right.
start, and he would have failed because he's not ready.
Right. And that's where Denver is a better situation, or Kansas City is a better situation.
Well, in Kansas City here, if if they see maybe a run on quarterbacks coming in the second round with all those draft picks, like he said, they can make that move to jump back up early into the second round to do what they need to do, because they do have some flexibility there. So I think Charles Harris is a good pick, and then they still have the ability to get their quarterback of the future, because Alex Smith, he was the number one pick, so you expect more of the number one pick, but he hasn't been terrible. He's been a solid quarterback. He has made some mistakes, obviously. He's not been the greatest, but he hasn't been the worst quarterback in the league.
He wins. My only knock on him is he for some reason gets flustered when it counts.
In big games, he struggles.
Well,
big games, he struggles.
he's a better version of Trent Dilfer in a sense as far as ability. Because Trent Dilfer was a game manager.
Yeah, like a game manager with a lot of skill.
And they didn't put him in situations to win the game with his arm. Kansas City,
Bill, I think you could have been the quarterback on that Ravens team with that defense.
Yes. Yeah, I could have just handed the ball off to Chester Taylor or whoever the running back. Lewis.
Jamal Lewis, yeah.
Yeah, I could have done that. And I could have just watched on the sideline, collected a paycheck, and got a Super Bowl ring. But
you just described Trent Dilfer's life.
Yeah, yeah, we did.
That was life.
And he's now on the NFL Network and making a lot of money for doing that.
Yep. Dallas Cowboys are up.
Dallas Cowboys, Tim Fillinger is back-to-back picks here, so we're going to keep Tim on and pick his mind for the Cowboys first.
Defense.
Edge rusher, Doug Free retired, the right tackle. They definitely may consider somebody to replace that.
Did Jason Witten retire? It looks like they needed a tight end.
Hello?
Tim, this is Bill Hrabak. I'm joined by Greg Henning and Mark Scovanner, and you are on the 2017 NFL mock draft. You are up with the Cowboys' 28th pick. I can run these down for you. I don't know if you've been able to follow it or not.
Yeah, if you would, please, Bill.
Okay, and for our fans out there and for Tim, the Browns took Myles Garrett, number 1. 49ers took Solomon Thomas, number 2. Marshon Lattimore went 3rd to the Chicago Bears. Jamal Adams, strong safety from LSU, went to Jacksonville. Malik Hooker, Ohio State safety, went to Tennessee. At number 5, Gareon Conley went number 6 to the New York Jets. Cam Robinson, offensive lineman for Alabama, went to San Diego. Number 8, Leonard Fournette, the running back LSU, went to the Panthers. Number 9, Derek Barnett, defensive end Tennessee, went to Cincinnati. Kevin King, cornerback Washington, went to Buffalo. Reuben Foster, inside linebacker Alabama, went to New Orleans. Mitch Trubisky, quarterback North Carolina, went to Cleveland. Corey Davis, wide receiver Western Michigan, went to Arizona. Christian McCaffrey, running back from Stanford, went to Philadelphia. With the 15th pick, Forrest Lamp, offensive guard from Western Kentucky, went to the Colts. At 16, Hassan Reddick from Temple, defensive end, went to the Ravens. At 17, Zach Cunningham, outside linebacker, Vanderbilt, went to Washington. Number 18, Mike Williams, wide receiver, Clemson, went to Tennessee. Number 19, Dalvin Cook, running back, Florida State, went to Tampa. Number 20, Ryan Ramczyk, the offensive tackle of Wisconsin, went to Denver. Number 21, Taco Charlton, defensive end, Michigan, went to Detroit. Number 22, Jared Davis, inside linebacker, Florida, went to Miami. Number 23, O.J. Howard, tight end, Alabama, went to the Giants. Number 24, Raekwon McMillan, linebacker, OSU, went to Oakland. Number 25, Deshaun Watson, quarterback, Clemson, went to Houston. Number 26, Garrett Bowles, offensive tackle, Utah, went to Seattle. And the last pick was number 27, Charles Harris, defensive end, Missouri, went to Kansas City.
Oh, okay. Well, the Dallas Cowboys, with their pick in the first round, are going to pick safety Jabril Peppers from Michigan.
Okay. What do you think about that, guys? I mean,
I could see it happening.
yeah, so could I.
I think, and I'm not that high on Jabril Peppers, but I think late first round for a guy that can play that has been able to play multiple positions.
Right.
Like we said, not at the highest level, but has experience playing it. I don't think that's a bad pick.
No.
I think it's a solid value pick.
Mark?
I don't know why, but it seems like that when he said I wasn't thinking that when I was looking up my stuff, but that just seems to fit, and it seems like something they would absolutely do, and it would seem like a good fit for Peppers because he plays at Michigan. He played a couple different defensive positions well, but in the NFL, if they could harness one out of him and make it great, that could be a real benefit for Rod Marinelli and Dallas.
Well, Dallas, I think, is in that situation, too, where they have a lot of questionable situations on defense, where maybe Peppers does come in and he can play a little outside linebacker, or he can play safety, he can play multiple positions.
Like a plug-and-play kind of type player.
Yeah, and depending on who else they may pick up or, who else they draft, Peppers might be able to fill some needs for him. So, that makes a lot of sense there, Tim. Anybody else that who would have been your ideal choice if they had fallen to you?
Well, if he had fallen to us, I would have picked Solomon Thomas, defensive end from Stanford.
Yeah. But
I had no reasonable expectation that he would have still been available.
Yep. And so let's jump over to the other team you're picking for, which is the Green Bay Packers. Needs corner, edge rusher, defensive line. What is your thinking there with the Packers?
Well, for the Packers are going to pick a backer, and I think they're going to go on somebody that they've had their eye on and stay within the state of Wisconsin and pick T.J. Watt and go with the bloodline.
Sure. And I've seen that in a lot of drafts that they have the Packers taking T.J. Watt there. I guess it just depends, guys, how much somebody needs that linebacker, and I've heard good, favorable comparisons between him and his brother as far as work ethic, and he's going to come to play,
which is a great thing to be compared to.
Yes. Yep.
Because there's not too many defensive players or players in the entire league in general with that kind of work ethic and ability like his older brother.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and as you guys know too, a lot of times work ethic in a player will surpass a player that has more athletic ability that has a lesser work ethic.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the good thing with the Watts is they have both.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah, they bring the high motor. They're good. They're high character guys, and it would seem that would be a great pick. Again, Mark and I, we were just talking about keeping kids home close that they've seen. Well, there you go. Yep. Green Bay's seen him. They know what he can do. So
and him next to Clay Mathews is another. That makes that defense.
Makes it better.
And that's what I was thinking too.
It's got to get better. That's one of their weaknesses. So, well, Tim, thank you for being part of your third consecutive mock draft here. As always, you gave us some good, solid picks for your teams, and we'll see next Thursday how we do here.
Well, guys, thank you for having me.
And that is
we can skip this and let's go down to the 31st pick of the Falcons if you don't mind.
Okay. And see you, Tim.
All right, take care.
We've got Greg Henning up again.
Oh, the love that I feel for the team with the most Super Bowl championships. When it comes down to it, that's all that matters is championships, right?
Excuse me, I think the Browns
I was going to say, except if it happens
I'm pretty
before
sure the Browns
a certain
won
amount of
titles before Hitler invaded Poland, so...
Now, how many championships do the Browns have? Is it 4 or 5?
They have 4.
Okay, so it's still less than the Steelers.
Well, they have 4 NFL titles. They have 8 titles. They have 8 titles overall.
Oh, okay, Michigan. Michigan's got like 15, right?
Okay. After 1950, it's 4.
Okay.
There were 12 papers in Cleveland back in the day.
Okay, so
if it wasn't for the Browns, there would be no NFL.
Easy.
That's where the Steelers were. They had like 13 people showed up for games.
They did. They had more people on the field in the stands. However, when there was no Browns there for a few years, the NFL still survived.
It's weird how that works.
How it did. Okay. So
in 1949, there was the push because the NFL attendance was so poor to get the Browns in because they were getting 80,000 to their games and they were getting 17,000 to the NFL.
They got more in the 40s than they do now to their games.
No, that's not true. Well, that is true because they have a smaller stadium.
It doesn't sell out.
He got me on that one. Okay,
So now, looking at the Steelers.
back to the ugly yellow and black there.
Hashtag black and yellow.
Did you know they retired the Bumblebee uniform throwbacks? Which
Did they?
Thank the heavens for
I
that.
think Michigan's got something crazy like that.
As a Steelers fan, even you can attest to how bad and ugly they were.
When I turned on the game and I saw those uniforms, I thought, I'm going to sit through and watch this nonsense. Oh, it's bad. It's really bad.
Roethlisberger's ugly enough.
He is. So is.
So where are we at here, guys?
The Steelers, they have, in true Steelers fashion, they're probably not going to pick anybody that jumps off the board at you. They never do.
They would pick somebody we do not expect.
Exactly, and some just a guy that doesn't have not a lot of press and no one knows a whole lot about, like Dupree a couple years ago, who's turned out to be a pretty solid player for him so far.
Yeah.
Eventually we've talked about this. They're going to have to take a quarterback because.
Sure.
The Roethlisberger is 36, I think, 36. 35.
Oh, I thought he was 46.
It's close. No, that's the number of quarterbacks Cleveland's had since '99. So they
Don't sell them short. 46. There's been more than that.
I know.
Not good ones, that's for sure.
No, so they're going to have. Eventually, they're going to, and they could do that in this draft, in the second, third round, because who knows?
Well, there's some guys there.
Absolutely.
Is Mike Vick still on their roster?
No, he retired a couple years ago. They need some linebacker help. Last year they drafted a couple of corners.
They're going to draft Mike Tomczak out of Ohio State.
No, he actually, he did well for him. He was on the roster for like 65 years.
Yeah, he was.
Last year they drafted a couple of guys out of the secondary. Artie Burns, who played sparingly, wasn't. I was really hoping they'd get the kid that Cincinnati drafted. They ended up hurting himself in minicamp. And so the first round they took Artie Burns out of Miami. Second round they took Sean Davis out of Maryland. Sean Davis again played sparingly. They took Javon Hargrave, who played pretty well. Now they took a defensive tackle last year. Honest to goodness, if Jonathan Allen's still available, they're taking him. Which I think in our draft he's still available, which is mind-boggling to me. I think I saw a lot of drafts, mocks. They had T.J. Watt, a possibility. Yep. Size, speed, athleticism, multiple positions.
And Peppers on the list too.
The mocks for the Steelers have been all over the place. I'm just looking at one right now, and you've got safety, tight end, outside linebacker, corner.
Yeah.
So that's
well, and I think this Obi Melifonwu from Connecticut.
Yep.
that sounds like a guy from
Troy Polamalu, Obi Kavanu,
and he gets favorable comparisons to Cam Chancellor, so he seems to fit what the Steelers would look at.
Yeah, the issue with the Steelers is with the guys they lost in the offseason. Mm-hmm. They need a pass rusher. Because they're not getting any younger at that position. They need somebody. If it were up to me, which it is, literally, honest to goodness, I promise you, I'll take a pass rusher, which is they don't need a defensive end as a rusher because that's not where they get their production from, which they have Cameron Hayward coming back from injury, which will help that pass rush a little bit. But I'm going to go with outside linebacker, UCLA, Takkarist McKinley.
Okay. And yes, good pick. I mean, he is one of those guys that's productive. Like we said, he comes from an NFL defensive scheme. And I think that is highly likely that that would be somewhere that they would go.
Is that a guy you could see falling, Greg, to all the way down to the Steelers?
I think so, because a lot of mocks, they don't have him going until late 20s anyways, end of the first round. So if he's there, I think they take him. They don't have. It's not a reach. It's not a stretch. They have to move up to get him. I think it's a guy that I think will be there. He does have some good measurables. A 33-inch vertical I'm looking at here, 10.2 broad, runs a 4.59. Anytime you get a edge rusher that runs in the 4.5s, that's pretty good. So,
right.
I think he'll be all right at that position in that pick in the draft.
Yeah, I think it would be solid there. And I think, Zach was supposed to pick for Houston. I just realized that. So, Rick, let's see if we get Zach. He's probably waiting there. We'll have him pick for Atlanta because he can do that stuff on the fly. Looking at the Falcons, if we were picking their guys, I think Carl Lawson from Auburn makes sense to me. He's a defensive end.
Yeah, the Williams kid out of Alabama is still on the board too. As
The
well.
Williams kid from Alabama, Tim Williams, I've seen him on some mock drafts for them. This Buda Baker, who's a free safety for Washington. And then, the kid we just talked about, Obi Melifoanu, he could definitely, be there.
Hello?
Zach,
Hey, what's up?
we bypassed you on the Houston pick. That's my mistake. We made that pick, but we're at Atlanta. And what do you see with Atlanta? Who do you think they would go with here? I mean, to run down the last few picks from 20 down, we had Ryan Ramczyk, the Wisconsin offensive tackle, went to Denver. Taco Charlton, defensive end, went to Detroit. Jared Davis, linebacker, went to Miami. O.J. Howard, tight end, went to the Giants. Raekwon McMillan, linebacker, went to Ohio State and ended up with the Raiders.
Sure did.
Deshaun Watson was drafted by Houston. Garrett Bowles went to the Seahawks. Charles Harris ended up with Kansas City. Jabril Peppers went to Dallas. T.J. Watt with Green Bay. And Takaris McKinley, the defensive end from UCLA, just got drafted by the Steelers. Now, I will let you know that Jonathan Allen is still on the board for the draft.
Jonathan Allen still.
Yeah, he's dropped all the way. We're at the 31st pick, and he's not been picked.
Well, I mean, that's a good fit for Atlanta, too. I think watching the Super Bowl, you saw that they got tired in the second half, the defensive line. And Jonathan Allen has a motor that doesn't stop, so I think that'd be a great fit in the interior.
If he falls down there, so...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Say Jonathan Allen doesn't in reality fall down there, where do you think they might go? Do you think they'll stay with defensive line, or are they going to go into coverage? Obviously, defense is where they need some help.
Yeah, I definitely think pass rusher or interior defensive line is one of the biggest needs. And there's a kid out of Auburn named Montravius Adams, and super freak athlete, had a great senior year. I think he'd be a good fit. And then there's a kid from Kansas State, his name's Willis.
Jordan Willis.
Had about 12, Jordan Willis.
Right.
I think he could be a good fit, too, on the outside.
Now, I was looking at Gil Brandt's list. He had the other Auburn defensive end ranked higher. That's Carl Lawson.
Yeah.
What do you think about Lawson?
Carl Lawson, he's built a lot like Myles Garrett. He's a lot shorter, but as far as like proportionate,
Yeah.
he's like a brick. I mean, the guy is very solid. He's very athletic. The biggest problem with him is that he's been injured every year that he's played for Auburn, except for the last year. And NFL teams are going to look at that, and they're not going to want to draft him in the first day.
Very good.
Now, I do have a question for you, Zach. I know Jaleel Johnson is still available out of Iowa. Could you see him jumping over Jonathan Allen?
I do not.
I had to throw that one in there for you. I know you're a big Iowa Hawkeyes fan, so I had to throw that in there.
I think he'll be a heck of a player. I do.
Yeah, he's a value pick later in the draft. I think he'll be all right.
Yeah, if he's in the right scheme, he can definitely play.
Okay. Well, Zach, thanks for being on. Again, I apologize for the Houston thing. We just blew right through that because we knew they were going to pick a quarterback, or we thought they were, and we took Watson. So thanks for participating, picking up the slack for us, and look forward to having you on next year.
Yep, thank you for having me on.
Yep. And that's Zach Hrabak with his pick for the Falcons. Guys, I've got the last pick here, and I'm going to make this quick because I've been hoping that he's going to fall. And Jordan Willis, the defensive end from Kansas State, is where I think the Saints will go with the last pick of the draft.
You know, it's interesting that this is the second kid from the Big 12 to be drafted in our mock draft. That kind of tells you how far the Big 12 has fallen. The first pick was from Kansas City. Charles Harris out of Missouri went to the Chiefs. So other than that, and when was the last time we've seen the University of Texas have a first-round draft pick? It's been a long time. Now, that being said, I think that's going to get turned around with Tom Herman there.
Yeah. Well, and I think the kid, he's not necessarily in the first round. Although, let me say this about the Raiders. The running back out of Texas, what is this, Dante Foreman, who's a big, powerful running back, and I've seen his name associated with the Raiders several times. The Raiders have been known in the past, and again, this is the past Raiders, but they jump up sometimes and take a guy that everybody else sees as a second-round pick. So I'm not so sure that that couldn't happen, that you could see if they want a running back. Cook's gone, McCaffrey's gone, the big three are gone, Fournette's gone, then they don't want Foreman to get picked before he's gone. Maybe the Raiders
Make sure they get their guy.
They get their guy
Right.
that they want. So I could see that happening. But, the Big 12, they've got to address that. They're not known as a defensive conference. And, Texas.
Baylor's falling apart. Texas falling apart.
Yeah, and TCU for years was...
TCU is...
Well, they were the defensive team, but they've kind of lost that character.
Trust me, I work with Bill Hrabak and Keenan Chapman. I was uniquely aware of how good TCU's defense was.
I think you got a mention in one of our other programs about the TCU defense and your just overt love that you have for them on a daily basis.
It's not. I have nothing against the TCU defense. It's the fact that Keenan Chapman had walked across the hallway every year, 3 years ago, and would let me know about TCU's defense. Oh, there's another defensive touchdown. That's like 27, 28 in a row.
Just reminding you.
And then Bill Hrabak would come at lunch and say,
tell him to say,
TCU scored another defensive touchdown. Yes, thanks, Bill.
Thanks for the late news.
And they also won those games 45-42.
Yeah, well, but if they hadn't scored that, then they wouldn't. They wouldn't have won. The thing is, TCU, they've kind of got away from that, but the Big 12 in general has
it's way down.
Yeah, they're more concerned about winning the game 61-58.
Right.
And you look at West Virginia comes into the league, and everybody was saying, West Virginia won't be competitive. Well, they've been more than competitive in the league.
Yeah, it's like when Missouri left, they couldn't compete in the Big 12, and then they go to the SEC, and then they're competing for East titles every year.
Right.
But I honestly believe that if Joe Mixon hadn't gotten into those issues, I think he would have been top 10, top 15 pick.
Easily.
Because
easily.
that's his talent level. Obviously, the off-the-field issues are another thing. So I think if it wasn't for that, I think they would have had somebody higher than 27th pick.
Yeah, and I think Samaje Perine would have been in there if he hadn't been so injury-prone his last couple of years. Because as a freshman, everybody was talking about him being a Heisman Trophy winner. And he may be like a dark horse kind of guy that you would see somebody pick later, too. But, guys, I thank you for being on the draft again. It's always interesting, and we can sit here and Thursday night take a look and see how our picks match up. Of course, next year we hope, being in our new studios, we're going to be able to add some video and some other things that we haven't been able to do in the past, as well as possibly maybe some interviews and things like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. Be exciting to see some multimedia up there.
Yep.
The fans will be able to see some things other than our faces for the full 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Get some video, get some highlights up there, and exciting big things are happening here with TalkTV.us.
Yeah, and if you get a chance, drive by the new digs here at 1122 MacArthur, right? And take a look inside. That's still just a little bit of an old retail store. It's got some beautiful design in it, and Rick's going to take that and develop it into a pretty good studio here. So, for Greg Henning and Mark Scovanner, I'm Bill Hrabak. Our thanks to Rick Phillips and Lee Hendee, and you've been watching the 2017 mock draft. Good night, everybody.